talk to me according to other people. So I'll just start and say that whatever presuppositionalism means with respect to Christianity, I think it probably makes for a poor argument on two different fronts. I don't think it's effective I don't think it convinces non-Christians or non-theists, and maybe you don't care about that. But second, I think anything that you can say in favor of it is going to count for pretty much everything else as well. I think all the moves available to a Christian with respect to presuppositionalism are open to like literally everybody else.
I mean, I can lead a horse to water, but I can't make him drink. Only the Holy Spirit can make him drink and convert him. We're just called to be faithful.
Sure. So in the second, what do you think of the second point, though?
The moves?
Yeah.
Evidentialist camp, classicalist camp, or whatever.
No, I meant more like Christian versus non-Christian, theist versus theist. First of all, do you think that there is an argument?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's both worldviews are making a claim. I laid out, two sides of the page. I'm on one side, you're on the other side, or at least the other worldviews on the other side. For the sake of argument, we both lay out our cards, whole worldview, best you can. Now, in the middle there, we got something that we both don't doubt that's actually intelligible, and we want to know which worldview can actually ground that systematically. So both are making the implicit claim, which would be the first premise of modus tollens. My worldview can ground that in the center, which is undoubted. No one's going to waver on that. That exists. That's intelligible. I'm not going to waver. I'm not going to sidestep. So they're making the first claim of modus tollens, the first premise. So reductio, which would be showing what they claim was intelligible on their own worldview, makes it unintelligible, or they flat out contradict it. Then you perform a reductio ad absurdum on their modus tollens reductio. That which implies this. If it implies not that, then the antecedent's also false. Done.
Sure.
Argument there.
So let's take it that I assume that the argument is something like if the Christian worldview is not true, then we can't reason, but we can reason, and fill that in, the last part in with whatever you want.
Well, both sides
Therefore, the Christian worldview is true.
Yeah, both sides are making that claim. My Q implies that P. Show not P, therefore not Q. Done.
Yeah. So, do you have a reason? What reason is there to suspect that Christianity can do anything to solve some of the really big problems with skepticism?
Like what, hard solipsism? We can usurp that, on our own grounds.
Well, when you say on our own grounds, you just mean assuming that God can give us, yeah.
So we're comparing worldview systems here. Yeah, that's a transcendental argument. We're dealing with whole systems, not just piecemeal. The whole package. Everything Christian lays out.
So what if in my worldview, one of my core beliefs is that I can know things for sure, and there's no Christian God?
On the basis of what?
No, those are core presuppositions.
Well, okay, let me press you on this. So when you just lay out the plethora of presuppositions, on what basis do you assume there's unity between them? What's a unifier?
Well,
the transcendental ultimate.
Well, that is my ultimate.
Wrong. That's a plurality, not a unity.
Well, why can't I have two propositions at the base of my worldview? That I know some things for sure and that God does not exist.
Then how do you make sense of two without unity?
I don't know what that means.
To say you have two transcendental ultimates is incoherent. There's an underlying context of how you even make sense of two-ness.
Okay, so I have three things, and I have abstract objects, like numbers.
Numbers are a unifying category, but that's just an abstract informality. It's just a formality, but it's abstract and impersonal. How does that generate personality in the physical universe?
Well, that's just my first assumption that I can know things for sure. One of the things that I know.
I want to know what your transcendental ultimate is. See, if you ask me what my transcendental ultimate is, the ontological trinity. the triune God of Scripture is my ultimate starting point. Personal, absolute, all conditioner of every single fact that exists.
Mm-hmm.
Condition of intelligibility. Now you're saying I got these things in my experience. I have a plurality, but I don't know what is the ultimate unifier. What would be the ground of all being? Likewise, ontological trinity. Then vice versa on the other side of the page. If you aren't arguing from that standpoint, you're still trying to get there. Then you have a baseless assertion or baseless presuppositions you want to assert, but you assume there's unity between them. You just have a static plurality that pretty much is just sound and fury signifying nothing. It'd be like you have a multitude of bricks as a foundation, but you assume one brick ties to the other brick. What's the tie that binds?
Well, it'd be like they're all sitting next to each other at the foundation, right?
How? What's the tie
What I
that binds
mean,
them together?
I'm not sure what you mean. What
It's,
requirement is that?
I mean, you know what a transcendental is, right? It's a precondition for something. Took away the precondition,
Uh-huh.
the consequent doesn't follow.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So
all the things that I need, I'm just putting at the foundations in order to be intelligible.
plurality with no unity. You believe there's a unity amongst its diversity? Yes. What is
I'm
that?
not. Yeah, that part I'm not understanding.
Okay. Well,
Why? What? I'm sorry.
it's answering the one to many issue, which is brought up even by the pre-Socratics before Socrates. Is reality ultimately one, or is it just a radical disjunctive plurality, or is it both with equal ultimacy? There's an equality between unity and diversity, not unity who serves diversity or vice versa. You actually have a balance, but we can ground that from the Christian worldview with the ontological trinity. God is equally ultimate in unity and diversity.
Well, let's
One,
say there's no unity. There's just these three planks,
then,
and
yeah,
those three presuppositions themselves apply to all, let's say, propositions, right?
no, you're saying they have their own ase starting point, which is what
Themselves, they're fundamental.
they just exist in and of themselves.
Well, yeah, it's the same way with any presupposition.
Well, but I'm talking about plurality of presuppositions, but we're talking about, we can call God an ultimate presupposition. He's a transcendental ultimate.
Hmm.
Presuppositions are transcendental in character. But since you
Hmm.
describe these like different levels, saying I have to have a starting point here, a starting point there, a starting point here, that's like Aristotle. Like 55 different levels.
These aren't on different levels. They're all fundamental.
I understand, but you're just talking about strict foundationalism, but it's a plurality with no unity. It's incoherent. And if
Why
you
is that
can't
incoherent?
because you can't make sense out of the even words you're saying in grammar and syntax to me, because you're assuming a unity amongst all the plurality of letters you're speaking to me from a plurality of words that convey one concept at a time to me. You automatically
Well,
assume unity amongst diversity.
one of my foundations that can't be questioned is that I can know things for sure. So, with
You're
that
not
in place,
talking metaphysic though. It's like talking. I want to talk epistemology without bringing metaphysics. You can't
okay,
be chaotic.
okay.
Yeah, you can't
So,
talk derivational unless you're saying your knowledge is ase. Then it's derivational. It's going to derive from your metaphysical outlook. What's the nature of
wait,
metaphysics, and how did you get knowledge from that?
so you wait, but if we can ask how do we get knowledge from that, I can ask you how we get knowledge from God.
Oh yeah, person to person. Yeah, personal, transcendental God to persons who are created in His own image.
Yeah, but
That's the
what if he wants to lie to you?
but you have to. Yeah, it's assuming a standard outside the Christian worldview. By then, he's committed a lie. That's just not a straw man. It's
Right.
just
So if you can tap out of that line of questioning by just saying you're talking about something else, then if you
oh,
ask me questions about my worldview, I can just say the same thing.
but I didn't see
I,
you lay anything cogent. I didn't hear a metaphysic.
well, you said you didn't want to talk metaphysics, you wanted to talk epistemology.
No, no, no. I said you only brought up epistemology. I can only know things. That's an epistemological claim, but as if it's just divorced from metaphysics from your perspective. You didn't plug anything in there. I
Okay,
know.
well that's easy enough. So
What is it?
there's a fundamental relation between all the things that exist. Let's just say the world segment. The world is all there is, and the world I'm saying is the collection of all concrete objects. And there's a relation that I'm going to call the knowledge relation between me and these objects. And that's my worldview. That's my metaphysic.
How'd you overcome hard solipsism? I can give a rational basis from the Christian worldview how
The
we actually.
knowledge relation, the knowledge relation overcomes
Well, no, you didn't
The
answer how you got knowledge from your metaphysic.
the relationship between objects and me is such there's only a couple things that exist. There's the universe, right? And then there's like minds. Between the
University.
minds and the universe, there's this knowledge relation. And that's what's fundamental. That's what I presuppose in my universe.
So what's the
That's my
absolute?
metaphysic.
What's the absolute ultimate? I'm not getting what
I don't
well being
know what you mean by
is.
that.
Kind of want to stay on the surface level here and go, look, I'm just filling stuff in the categories, but even when you list out the plurality of categories, metaphysics, epistemology, ethics, if you want to get there to ethics, just those three categories of three main branches of philosophy, what the heck unifies them? You say the universe. Well,
Hmm.
how'd you get unity amongst this diversity? Just what is the unity?
I
Does
don't
it mean
really
uns-
know what you mean
or
by that still.
you have no idea what unity and diversity is, or universals and particulars?
Not well, universals and particulars can be different because there are universals that aren't related sideways to each other, presumably. Like numbers and colors, if those are universals, they don't really numbers aren't colored and colors aren't numbered.
They're derivational states, which stem
They're
from the being, which would be the transcendental ultimate. What would that be?
right. So if I just say I don't have that and all these universals are just different, but they have relations to
How?
concrete objects,
How?
that's just how they are. That's their nature. They're
But
fundamental.
but they don't change. But the materialistic objects are constantly in flux. How's there a correlation between the things that are permanent and the things that do change? Like
Well,
which
if
are
a concrete object changes its state, then essentially they're governed by a new universal.
what would that
So
be?
if something changes from blue to green because its physical properties change, I'm not sure what the issue is there
How does it change from blue to green?
because its physical properties change.
That's identifying, but you're applying a universal to that particular thing at a particular point in time. You're applying the universal to a
Sure.
particular.
Physical state one is governed by blue colors, the universal blue.
How'd you get the two in the same realm to begin with? You want to say,
What do you
look,
mean?
got squished into one realm, like Plato's demiurge. He just had to peel the myth. He just squished them together. The realm of the forms and the realm of the particulars.
Hmm.
He didn't know how to bring the two together. You got the two in the same realm. How's there any correspondence? Otherwise, they're just parallel lines that never meet.
I'm
I mean,
not sure what you're saying.
how's
Let
there
me
any
just tell you this. Let me tell you what happens in the
particular?
universe, and you can tell me what you think my response is to this question that I'm not really understanding. So there are universals, let's say,
How?
and what?
How are there universals? What's the ground of
They're not
well-being?
they're,
GH institutes
they
universals.
don't have a further ground. They're necessarily existent.
So they're just ase in and of themselves.
Right, like God in your worldview.
Well, that's a personal being, not some impersonal abstraction.
Why can't impersonal abstractions be necessary?
How do you? Well, you're just saying they're ase in and of themselves.
Right.
Abstractions. That's amazing.
Why is that amazing?
Using Aristotle's version of abstraction, that requires a mind to abstract.
Well, Plato's didn't.
Well, once again, you want to appeal your Platonist now?
No, you just said what you're
What will
saying is against what Aristotle said, and I don't really care. Be easy enough for me to point to another person who had a different view.
they just are they conceptual by nature, or what's their ontos? I didn't hear an ontos for them.
No, they're not conceptual.
What are they?
They're platonic. They're abstract objects,
Abstract. How are you using the term abstract?
not located in space and time.
They're located in
Don't en-
space.
not located in space and time.
Okay, so they're in a different realm. If you're
Right.
Platon, they're in a different realm.
Hmm.
And how'd you get two realms together?
Well, abstract objects can still be in relation to particulars.
How?
You're just saying what are relations?
The way Plato wanted to illustrate it, you pre-existed before materialistic existence, and you're recollecting the forms in your materialistic experience. So you're saying reasoning is recollecting now?
No.
then you're not a Platonist.
Well,
People are Plato-
that's kind of a weaselly move. Being a Platonist just means you believe in the existence of abstract objects. Doesn't necessarily mean
I mean, Neoplatonist. You don't hold to Plato's
No.
metaphysics. You want to be a Neoplatonist, some new Platonist.
No, that's historically inaccurate.
Wrong. That's what
If a mathematician
Neoplatonists are out.
says that he's a Platonist, you're saying he thinks that he pre-existed in a Platonic realm?
That's what Plato's philosophy was.
I know, that's why I know. But I'm not
Plain-
saying but being a Platonist doesn't mean you believed all the things Plato believed. It means you have a
just
certain
say,
thing with abstract objects.
did, or you taking some other standard but want to, describe it as Platonism.
Yeah, traditional Platonism towards abstract objects just means that I think that there are universal abstract objects. Doesn't mean I pre-existed.
I ain't hearing metaphysical grounding for them other than they are just ase.
Right, that's what they are.
If they are
They don't have it.
Okay, so each independently is a ground of all being.
No.
So
you said they're ase, not are they all the ground of being?
I said if they are ase, they will be a ground of that, and then anything stemming forth from that. But since you have all those distinct particulars that are radically disjuncted from each other, you haven't shown what the ultimate unifier is, because you'd have to go down to one, not a plurality.
No, I have a plurality.
That's it. Yeah, you have no unity amongst diversity. Period. None. You're like Leibniz. Just all there are indistinct monads. Now, he wanted to describe them. They have some unity. Describe them to one grand monad, but you're not asserting a grand monad. So you're assuming a bit of Platonism, bit of Aristotle, different levels. Each one has an ase starting point to the different 55 levels, and then bringing a little bit of Leibniz. You'd have to throw in an ultimate unifier, which would be like a grand monad, because the different levels represent the monads, the individual monads. You gotta say, I gotta have something ultimate that unifies them. I didn't hear an ultimate unifier yet. Transcendental.
No, I don't have one. There isn't one, and I don't need one.
Yeah, because you can't make sense of even the grammar and syntax you've been speaking to me right now.
No, grammar and syntax. I mean, I can tell you what those are.
If so,
you want to hear the story.
Only speak in subject, because you can't predicate on any universals.
Wait, what's that?
Because you're just speaking subject. Individual, distinct particulars, you can't predicate on any universals. Since everything is an ultimate plurality, there is no unity. So there are no universals.
What happens if I don't have fundamental unity? What's so bad about that?
Only speak in subject, not predicate.
Why? Why can't I say the ball is red?
Individual thing, individual thing, individual thing, individual thing, individual thing.
Right.
That's it.
Well, one ball is red, and then there's another red ball.
Is red a universal?
Yes.
How?
Again, I'm not sure what you're asking when you say how is red a universal.
Yeah, you just stipulate.
Well, that's what my worldview is.
Are you an anomalist?
No.
Then you say universals actually do exist, and then how you ground them.
I don't. My universals aren't grounded. They are all fundamentally existent.
It's not generated. It's not part of the electromagnetic spectrum where we pick out the color red or different shades of it.
Well, that determines the physical properties which instantiate a universal.
In it is derivative.
Is what derivative?
Color red.
No, there is. There's an abstract object for redness, right? Some balls instantiate it, some don't.
Then how we conceptualize of it, if it's not conceptual by nature?
There's a fundamental relationship between abstract objects and our mind. What I called the knowledge relation.
So a relationship is now an object?
It's a relation.
I'm asking you to ground that. What's its ontos? What is relationship?
It's fundamental. That's just how things work in my worldview.
Ontology.
What?
What's its nature? What's its essence? Is it conceptual? How is it apprehended by the mind? If it's not conceptual, I'm not sure how it could be apprehended by mind.
It's just a brute fact that there's a relationship between.
A brute fact is a mute fact. There's no context to it, so it's not understandable. As if you can think of one thing without a whole cluster
No,
of things.
you're right. Brute facts don't have a further explanation.
No, they're mute facts
What do you mean by mute?
because there's no context.
No, but
It'd
what
be
do
an
you mean by
undescribable.
mute? I
It would
I
be
didn't.
an undescribable simple. Because if you're going to
Yeah.
mode explanation, you say this is the fundamental thing. It would be an undescribable simple, as Wittgenstein said.
Yeah, if somebody said like what is velocity, right? I wouldn't like at some point it's just gonna be, look, that's what it is. I don't have an explanation for it.
then
It's
you have
just
no
a
argument.
fact.
God just is what he is. But you don't like that. Say throw the same standard at you. You go, well, I can be arbitrary, but you can't be. I go, but
No,
you're
that's
back.
not exactly what I'm saying. Hold on. What I'm saying
Arbitrary. I
is,
can be arbitrary too, man. Come on.
hold on. If you remember at the beginning, I said there are 2 points. One, that this argument is poor because it doesn't.
Address that. You're back.
I
To
know. Just wait a second. Let me finish. I had 2 points. One is that nobody gets moved by this argument, and 2, it's a poor argument because whatever you say, anybody else can help themselves to the same thing and take whatever is troublesome and just throw it in at the ground level of the worldview
You didn't
and
go.
get out of it, which
You
is what
didn't.
I just did.
Because you understand, if I tell you to write 1 and 2 on a page, imagine a piece of paper. Just imagine in your mind, write 1 and 2 on the page.
Okay.
What unifies 1 and 2?
Again, I don't understand what you're saying.
So you write 1 on a page, on a piece of paper, write 1 and write 2.
Okay.
What unifies both of those? You have 2 particulars.
What unifies the numbers 1 and 2?
What unifies them? What underlying context unifies them?
They're both numbers.
Exactly. Good. Okay, number. So you have an underlying context between particulars. So that's what I'm asking you to do with your multiple
Between
plurality.
those two. Yeah.
You have a whole bunch of them now.
Mm-hmm.
So you call there's number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. You call them all number. You're going to think in general classes and unifiers of things.
Mm-hmm.
I ask you about your metaphysical plurality. You have no unifier metaphysically, do you? No underlying
Well,
context.
it sounds like I just got some for free. You
wanna-
said that we put a number 1 and a number 2 on a page. What are they both? And I said they're both
just
numbers.
using an impersonal abstraction here. They're impersonal, but you apply that to personality. Now you got some real trouble. If you want to make the foundation of all reality impersonal, you're not accounting for personality unless you just say personality is not a thing. There's no personhood.
Before we jump to that, are you saying I've successfully alleviated your worry about?
No.
Okay. So then let's stick to that before we talk about personality, maybe.
Formal impersonalism. It's just merely an abstract notion. Well, there is ultimate truth out there. It's ultimately impersonal. Don't know how we got personality from it because I'm not accounting for that. Are you? You're not doing it. So it went from impersonal abstraction to physical universe and personality just popping into being.
Well, I think we can wait on what personhood is. I still don't really see what the issue between
Christian theists. I'm comparing the worldviews, and I see someone appealing to abstract formalities, which are personal, and say, "Oh, obviously we got it from its opposite. Come on," but I'm going from the personal to the personal. There's no problem there. You're not appealing to.
That's a separate problem, but I'd rather talk about that one maybe after we've understood your first one.
Why don't you address it now?
Okay.
I was just getting the right meat here.
We can.
Thrown out bones. You put no meat on these bones. I'm the only one putting the meat on the bones.
Okay, let's get to bone and then. So if you're not really worried about this first issue, we can talk about the second one.
I just said, what is the ultimate unifier? Some impersonal absolute. You put a question mark on it. I go.
There's no Again, the unification still doesn't make sense to me.
Hold on. From my side, I appeal to the ontological trinity as my transcendental ultimate, grounding my metaphysics, my epistemology, my ethic. That's my worldview. That's my ultimate. Draw the lines from each one of those categories down to draw a circle, put the ontological trinity there. One being, 3 persons. I can account for unity, diversity, ultimately,
Not for
exhaustively,
knowledge, though.
context, and then I want you to do the same from your side. You're going to draw the lines down to the circle, and you're going to put a question mark there. I don't know what that is.
Well, I told you what it is.
What is it?
We have a number of different abstract objects, and we have relations between abstract objects and physical objects.
What is the
That's what's fundamental.
the relations? Because you
I
say relations, but you don't state what they are.
they're fundamental. There's no further explaining
But you have a plurality
relationship.
of no ultimate unifier of the relations either. You're still in a radical disjunctive plurality. They're disjuncted from each other. There's nothing other than
Whatever God is doing for you is what the universals are doing.
You don't have a personal God. It's not parallel, buddy. Come
I
on.
didn't say they're parallel. I just said whatever God is doing to
No, well, look,
universals
you
for
have an
you
apple. I
is
have an
what.
orange. Are they the same? I go, no, I have an apple. You got an orange. They're not the same. Come on.
I didn't say they're the same.
You said, hey, you're appealing to God, Matt, just like I am. No, you're not.
I didn't
You're not
appeal to God.
Come
All
on.
right, let's back up because we're going off the rails, and I think you're losing it a
No.
little bit.
No. This is where the crux is, buddy. We're talking about what is ultimate, the grounds, anything you want to talk about in experience. You're not appealing to the ultimate. You can't even get there.
All right. Give me like 30 seconds to talk, and then I'll hand it over to you. Okay. So in your universe, you have this God that somehow, I'm guessing, conceptually grounds universals. And there's a relation. 30 seconds is really all I wanted.
You articulate the Christian position for me.
Hold on a sec, Matt. Can you give him 30 seconds, please?
Yeah, I just wanted to represent the Christian position accurately.
You can tell me where I'm wrong when I'm done.
Okay.
So in your worldview, there's relationship between universals and God, and then God and concrete particulars in such a way that God is in a relationship with really his creation, such that universals are bound to those concrete objects. Now, I'm saying all of that is happening in my worldview, except it's not an active mental process. This is just the metaphysical nature of how everything works. So I'm not saying that we have the same worldview. What I'm saying is that relation between God and abstract objects and creation, I get, but with no God as a middleman. That's what my worldview is.
You didn't articulate my worldview accurately. God is co-ultimate unity and diversity in his own being. He's one being, three persons. I never heard those brought up at all. So, talking about an ultimate covenantal personalist context where everything in creation is in relationship to divine persons within the context of divine persons. I didn't hear you articulate that from the Christian position. Since I brought up the ontological trinity multiple times thus far, so you just don't understand Christianity.
Well, I'm leaving that part out because it doesn't really matter what the details are. What matters.
Yes, it does.
What matters
literally
is that
straw man the Christian position and knock down a straw man ad nauseum.
I don't think. Let me try again because I don't think you heard it.
Okay, but you didn't articulate my worldview, how I've been articulating it.
Well, I don't think it matters if I use your theological speak. All I want is there's a relation between God and particulars, right? You have that. Whatever it's called, it doesn't really matter.
It's one and many. Ontologically. It's called the ontological trinity in Christian theology. Just so you get the Christian side correct.
Right. And again, I don't know why that matters.
Because that's ultimate accurately described. Can you deal with the best I have to offer, or must you diverge from it? And
if you listen to my point, if you listen to my point, I just want to find out why I can't just have all of that stuff that you have, except I remove God. I know you're going to say the issue is that I don't have an ontological trinity or something to that effect, but I'm saying, why does that matter? That relationship that used to get funneled through the person of God is just direct to all physical objects, including persons.
But your ultimate is not personal. Mine is
Correct.
exhaustively personal.
Correct. That is correct. That's what I
And
said.
they're
I'm
not
leaving
the
that
same
part out.
thing. You would
No,
have an impersonal unity and
I know they're not the same. It doesn't matter if they're the same. I promise you. I'm saying I'm keeping the relation between. I'm
You're just
moving that
asserting
relation.
relationship.
Yes,
But
exactly. I'm presupposing it, you might say.
relationship is personal. Can you make sense out of saying there's a relationship? You have
No.
to have a personal intellect.
Look, one marble can be 1 inch from another marble. That doesn't mean
You're
they
a
have a
person.
personal relationship.
Duh.
What?
Just hand me a couple.
My
of
desk right now is 14 inches away from me. That doesn't mean that 14
That's a
inches
measurement.
is a personal relationship.
That's a
Yeah,
measurement.
right. It's a physical measurement. It's a relation between me and my desk. It's a distance relation. That's not personal. So you can't say it has to be personal because a person is involved. That's nonsense.
You're describing it because you're a personal agent. You have to describe it this way. We're talking about how you can even account for even that description. You haven't even accounted for it one iota. Look, man, I can make descriptions, use grammar and syntax, unity and plurality together. I go, but what's your ground of all being? It's both unified and diverse, co-ultimately. What is it?
Well, it's just a brute relation between abstract objects and concrete objects.
It's assuming intelligibility of them, but it's not intelligent.
I am assuming that. I'm assuming I remember the second thing that I said.
But you're not accounting for personality.
Is that there's a knowledge relationship.
You ain't accounting for knowledge.
I don't need to. That's look, that's just my worldview.
So knowledge is impersonal. I'm
Um,
just talking what you're going to the vacuum of impersonality here. You're just appealing to abstract.
well, I'm a person, if that's what you're asking.
How are on what grounds are you a person? Is it merely just a name? Now you're going to go into nominalism, pretty much. It was just a placeholder. We just call ourselves persons, but what is a person?
Well, a person is somebody with a mind.
Okay, how do you count for mind stemming from the ultimate, which is not a mind? How'd you get minds?
Minds are the result of a what? Sorry, I thought you said something.
Yeah, just okay. It was non-mind and then became mind. How did that transpire?
There are psychophysical laws. Psychophysical laws. Correct.
Where are the psycho laws?
What are the psycho laws? I don't have psycho laws.
Were they non-personal to begin with? Then all of a sudden, suke comes in here. You know, the Greek term.
No, the laws are always there.
What are they? The persons.
What are the laws?
Are they personal?
No, the laws themselves don't have minds. If that's what you're asking.
What are they?
What are laws?
They're non-minds, right? No, okay, we're going to start off with non-minds.
I don't understand your question. Are you asking me what laws are?
Count for minds from non-minds. So,
what?
You're supposed to be accounting for minds from non-minds, right?
Correct.
Okay, how do you do that?
There are physical, concrete objects that when they get in the right physical functional state.
What's that? What's that state?
Like what? Well, let's just call them brain-like states.
Whoa. So you're saying it goes poof?
No, I didn't say it goes poof.
Oh, you're going to mechanistically describe this, or just give generalities?
Well, I'm not going to be able to.
The thing that gets you consciousness, poof, consciousness. Why? Because I said once you get the things that get you consciousness, didn't lay out what they are.
Yeah.
Particularly, you didn't lay out any brass tacks empiricism. None. It's just.
Sorry, what's the question?
You get the thing. Hey, how about that? That's my explanation. Once you get the thing to get the thing, you get the thing.
What?
That's all you said to me thus far, and everyone heard it. Well, once you get
this correct
get consciousness, guess what, Matt? We get consciousness, personality,
what I got out of it was
all these non-mind things. Get how many non-mind things?
I thought the question was, how do you get mind type things from non-mind things? Right.
It completely changes ontology.
And JHC's answer was something about the formation of the particles, right? So if I handed you a bunch of matter, protons, neutrons, electrons, and I said, arrange this, and brains are made of matter, right, Matt?
Brains are controlled under the laws of physics and biochemistry. I don't believe that's the ontos of a human agent. No, because I'm a Christian.
Wait,
well,
now you're talking about a mind, right? But my question was about brains.
You're making brain equivalent to mind?
I haven't even gotten there yet. My question was, do you think that brains are made of matter?
I already answered that question. I did answer that question.
Okay, was it a yes? Because I don't remember that.
Mind, because you brought up mind first, then brain. Didn't he? That's exactly the order he went in.
Right, but my question was...
Yes.
What's the difference between mind and brain, then?
Well, we haven't even gotten there yet.
He brought up mind first, and then brain.
Well, you're asking for an explanation as to why you get thinking or minds from non-minds, right?
He didn't answer that.
I can try if you want.
Are they distinct?
Are brains and minds distinct? They're distinct in their properties. Brains have physical properties, minds have mental properties.
Are mental physical?
No.
So it went from physical to non-physical. So it went from matter and motion to that which is not matter and motion. How did that transpire?
Well, it doesn't seem to be any more mysterious than why are there physical properties. It's the same sort of thing. What's more mysterious about there being mental properties than there being physical properties?
So you're a mystic?
I didn't say that.
You said it's mysterious. That's a mystic. It's your own word. Oh, you want to retract that? I'll let you retract that. But you
hold on. Slow down just a little bit, okay?
Okay.
So there are physical particles. There are laws governing physics.
Matter and motion. How is it?
Wait, hold on. If you want me to lay it out, I will, but I just need like 2 seconds.
That's the crux. How does it switch?
Yeah, Matt. I'm gonna have to ask you not to interrupt.
I want to get right to the point.
So there's no switch. There's an entire set of psychophysical laws waiting around for brains to get into the right configuration.
They're waiting around.
Yeah, well, they don't have anything to do until there are minds, in some sense.
So where are these?
Obviously, I'm speaking loosely.
All right, Matt, please. I'm gonna ask you one more time. I'm very, very, very hesitant to mute you at all, but if you keep interrupting,
I'm gonna get point counterpoint. I don't think he's scared of that doing that. I just want to get
well. He said he wanted 30 seconds, right?
He did. Yeah, but it's not answering the original question. I already knew where he's going because you have to go say, okay, I'm starting out with brass tacks physicality.
I know you're like 4 chess moves ahead, but I'm a little slow, so you're gonna have to deal with.
Been around the block a few times, so I can lay out my position very quickly, articulately, because I've done it multiple times.
Matt, perhaps you could just humor the audience, which there's about what.
How long have you been talking on it? How long you want to go?
There's like
wait,
hold on a second.
Mute, please, Xerxes.
Do what?
You're echoing.
Sorry, King Xerxes. First of all, you don't have any headphones on, and this is kind of mostly a one-on-one. I'm trying to moderate, but look, Matt, just for the sake of the people in the room who want to hear this explanation, for only 30 seconds is what he's asking for. I think it's completely reasonable. All your objections will be heard afterwards.
I think I heard the thing. These other laws are waiting for.
Okay, Matt. Is it too much? Is it too much to ask for 30 seconds?
I thought he was done.
He hasn't even started yet. We're waiting for you to stop talking so we can presume his time to respond.
Okay, what else do you have to lay out for me, man?
Okay, so you're not going to respond, right? Please? I'm asking you very nicely, even though I'm a horrible, mean atheist, right? I'm asking and I'm begging you for only 30 seconds of you not talking so that he can speak, and he's been waiting patiently and not over-talking you. Can you please do that? Thank you.
All right. So, in this universe in which there are, at the beginning, at the Big Bang, there are abstract objects that are outside the physical universe, but have fundamental relationships to the particulars in this universe. At some point, because of Darwinian evolution, brains emerge and become complex enough that they start implementing certain kinds of computational functions. And what ends up happening here, and this is cool, this is a brute fact as far as we know, Matt, but there are these psychophysical laws that govern the relationship between physical properties and these brand new mental properties. These mental properties you get for free computationally due to the complexity and operations of these physical objects known as, say, brains. So these psychophysical laws govern the relationship so that if you get poked in the stomach, your brain lights up in a certain way, and there's a reliable correlation between that and the mental feeling of, ow, followed by don't poke me in the stomach, right? So that's how personality is in my non-Christian universe. I don't think that took more than 30 seconds.
So it's the operational feature of these things outside the physical universe.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
The operational features of the things outside the universe.
Operational
Psychophysical laws.
Yeah, well, are you saying are psychophysical laws located in the universe?
You said they're outside the universe, did you not?
I don't think I said that. I don't really have an
Yes.
opinion about that. I said
Prior
universals
to
were.
the Big Bang, these things were outside the physical universe, and they come into.
No, universals have never been in the universe.
Right, they're outside of it.
Right.
These
I wasn't sure what you were
psychophysical
asking me.
I was just delineating the two realms.
Okay.
And you say there's interactivity between the two realms. So what unifies the two realms? What is it?
Again, when you say that, I don't know what you mean. And let me
Just like number one and number two again, buddy. Same problem.
Well, they're both numbers, so the universal numbers, because all those really are 1 and 2 are just sets of objects.
Ontologies. One is,
No,
you're doing Platonism here.
They're
Plato's
just
realm
sets.
of the forms.
Look, Matt, can you
Big Bang?
Look,
hold on, give me a second. I let you speak. Instantiation of time, space, matter, contingency, flux, versus the unchanging realm of these psychophysical laws. So those don't change. Now, how you
The
get
psychophysical laws.
What,
No, the
what
psychophysical
unifies
laws
the
don't
two?
change.
What unifies them?
What unifies what?
The realm of the unchanging form, so your psychophysical laws, and then the instantaneous flux of the materialistic universe, which is under physical laws.
Well, the nature of universals is just to be in relation with any concrete object that instantiates them.
Because you're assuming a relationship. But you didn't do that between the two realms, because what's the ground of all being that unifies the two realms?
Well, psychophysical laws apply to...
That's one realm.
What? Psychophysical laws, in the very name, govern the relationship between psychology and, say, neurobiology.
Impersonal relationship.
That's correct. It is impersonal. There's no God here. They're just brute facts.
Okay, so the immaterial connects with the material how?
The immaterial. Now, are you talking about mental, or are you talking about
universal? You told me these are psycho laws.
Psychophysical.
Psychophysical laws, yeah.
What? Okay, how are they physical?
Well, because
they're
they
in time
govern...
and space. Well, you put them outside of time and space, so they can't be physical. Because they'd be extended in space.
Yeah, no law is physical. You're not going to stub your toe in the law of gravity. I assume that's true for you in Christianity. You don't think you're going to stub your toe in the law of gravitation.
Yeah, I have a personal God, so it's not a parallel. Psycho laws, but it's non-personal being here. Non-personal.
Yeah, there's none.
Being. It's just psycho laws versus the physical laws.
Psychophysical laws, yeah.
No, physical means they're extended in space. They're not extended in space.
No, they're laws governing the physical. If somebody says a physical law,
Okay,
they don't mean a law.
Oh, you mean
that
they
is found in space-time. They
What's the
mean
force?
they mean a law that governs
How do they
physical
exert
bodies.
force? Okay, you're saying they exert force.
Exert. Well, I
Govern.
don't.
You use a
Certainly
term.
not.
I wrote it down. You said govern, for crying out loud. That was quote unquote govern.
Yeah.
Well, what's
When you
govern?
say
mean?
exert force, that seems like a
Exert
weasel
force,
word.
govern. I'm just trying to think of how I can break down govern because you said that explicitly. I didn't hear you really break it down for me. You just said govern. They just govern. They just have this authority.
Yeah.
Impersonal authority.
Yeah.
As just abstract impersonal determinism.
Yes. You got it.
I get it. Okay.
Yes.
So using personal categories, you're kind of reifying.
Oh.
Is that
We were close.
reification?
What do you mean by personal there?
Because you keep using personal terms. Govern.
No, I just mean like applies to or limits the space of limits the space of possibilities.
So that limits what's possible and impossible.
Yeah, like the law of gravity states that
impersonal,
all things being equal, ceteris
abstract.
paribus.
And see where the physicality actually came from these immaterial things. So they're the ground of all being. They're antecedent to the Big Bang. They are antecedent because you said prior to the Big Bang, these things already existed. That doesn't count for the generation of the physical universe.
Wait, okay. So are you asking me a question right now? I'm not sure.
I just go from things not extended in space to things extended in space. How does that happen?
How do we go from there being no things that are extended in space to there being things extended in space?
Correct.
Oh, so like where did the Big Bang come from? We're switching topics to that.
That's your metaphysic. You got two realms, and you have.
But that's what you want to talk about right now.
So I want to say the one realm is ase, the realm of the abstract forms or your psycho laws, and then you want to force a will on them or some sort of governance, and then somehow the material universe comes into being on its own, and then this thing just says, "Oh, now I'll deal with this realm," but you didn't account for is one derivational of the other. I mean, like okay.
Huh?
Or yeah, you just
Wait,
have the universe just pop in the beam.
Maybe succinctly ask your current question? I'll do my
I'm
best.
just trying to put the two together. You just keep asserting two realms, but I go, which one's the antecedent, which one's the consequent?
They're not. There's two sets of laws.
I
Psychophysical
get it,
laws.
but they're radically disjuncted. Now you just assert unity between them just by fiat. I didn't hear any rational accounting for the unity.
There's that question again. So maybe
you need to.
You're asking right now.
Like,
everything else makes sense, but I don't understand how there can be unity.
Ultimate. Which one's the transcendental ultimate?
There is none.
Then you have no basis for any assertions whatsoever. It's foundational.
Why? So look, there are laws. There are abstract objects.
There is no laws. You have chance.
No, that's not a part of my worldview. When did I say that?
I didn't see how you bring the two realms together. You haven't done that, so.
What do you mean? I have laws that I have psychophysical laws.
Apart from being. I mean, they're apart from personal being. They're
Correct.
impersonal laws, and I don't know where you get personal popping into being.
Why do you say personal is popping into being?
You know what personal traits are. You believe you're a person. You're talking to a person. Am I just an amalgamation, just materialistic particulars, and that's it? So I'm just, a man.
When I said that there are,
in the water,
when I said there are mental properties,
he can never get the ladder built that's made out of water to get himself up out of the water. He never does so. So he's just a biochemical machine. And that's it. He never usurps that. How does he ever do that?
Okay, so now it seems like you're misunderstanding my position.
You want him to be more than. This is why you have to have a separate realm. He has to be more than a strict biochemical machine under strict chemical determinism.
Yeah.
You don't like where
do you remember when I said there are mental properties that aren't physical?
How do you have mental without a mind? You didn't appeal to a mind. They're mental things that exist without a mind. What are they?
There are mental things that exist without a mind.
They're
What-
mental. What do you mean by mental then? I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Like thoughts, beliefs, desires, psychological
Exist in and
states.
of themselves. Just out in the ether? Or what? You gonna appeal to the ether or something?
No.
Another realm.
They're not located in space and time. They're mental.
How do you know these things?
Oh, so now this is just a question of epistemology now that we've settled the
No,
metaphysics?
we're dealing. You can't just talk about one without the other. They go in one stroke. Metaphysics and epistemology. We've been discussing
I already
metaphysics.
told
How
you.
you
Alright.
know how you get knowledge from these things?
Again, back to the beginning.
Do
I
they
have a
know?
relate-
Do these things know in the
Alright, go
outside
ahead.
of the physical universe? Do these things have knowledge? They're mental, but is it knowledge?
No.
What is it? Non-knowledge.
Correct. Abstract
Mental
objects don't have
non-knowledge.
knowledge.
They're
What?
mental,
Alright,
but
hold
they're
on. Stop.
non-knowledge.
You're way off the rails, okay?
No, I'm not.
I can clean this up in like 2 seconds.
I'm
Abstract objects don't have
right now.
minds.
You have to be stinking clear. We're done. I'm not
Well, I
showing
think
this
it's pretty
discussion any
clear.
longer than it really needs to be because you just keep going, well, where can I go from here? Because you're just throwing jello at a wall. seeing
Please
what
don't tap
sticks.
out, Matt.
No, I can whenever I want. I was invited here, and I've entertained you for as long as.
No, I'm just
I
saying,
want.
please don't tap out. That's all.
Why?
You.
I didn't see any. I see these huge leaps and gaps, which you haven't plugged.
Okay, so right now, what you're worried about is that universals themselves don't have minds. Do I understand you correctly?
Yeah. You're appealing
Okay.
to these mental things that are not mind. They're
They're
part
not
of
mental things. I don't know. I've never said they were mental.
Oh.
Universals aren't mental.
Okay, we're
They
done.
don't
We're
have
done.
minds.
We're done.
They don't
We're
have
done.
mental.
Sorry. You flat out contradict yourself. You said it 5 times in a row before, and I kept saying they're mental. You said yes, they are mental.
What?
Okay, we're done.
That's
Oh.
Did I say that universals
No,
have
of course
minds?
not. That was his bailing.
that was him running away.
Okay, Water, you're up. Hey, how's it going, Water?
That was him feeling fucked.
Yeah. How's it going?
Water, you are presuppositionalist number 2. Were you following the dialogue between Matt Yester and JHC?
Yeah, I was listening to
How do you
most of
unify
it.
that?
It's funny, but yeah, that's pretty high level stuff. I mean, I don't understand like everything that was going on, but I think it was pretty good. Like, it was cool.
Okay.
It's okay.
Yeah.
Neither did Matt.
Matt's really smart. He's a smart guy, good-hearted, good.
Hey,
So-
be nice. Be nice.
Well, I
There's
think
one-
he's
I want him
very
back.
talented at drinking.
There's one
Yeah.
problem though, which is that JHC gave an account which relied on psychophysical laws, but there can't be psychophysical laws.
Oh, here we go.
Well, of course I don't believe any of that. The point is the point isn't for me to turn everybody into an eliminativist, which is what I want to do. The point is spinning up a very easy worldview.
Yeah.
That
But
can
I
account
guess,
for intelligibility.
yeah, I guess
Also,
I
there are
would like to
psychophysical
ask.
laws.
I'd like to
Anyway.
ask JHC, like, how do you get like a mind from matter and motion? Like, if we're just atoms and molecules moving
Well,
around.
I can get so look, this is a really hard question. I'm not gonna lie, you seem very nice when you ask that in a respectful way. I don't have an exact answer. It seems like it's an open area. Now I have some ideas, and I'm gonna just tell you what they are. And none of the accounts are gonna rely on the existence of God. One, there could be something like just brute dualism. There could be Cartesianism, and just like physical objects, at some point they're going to be brute facts. Maybe minds could be brute facts too, right? It makes just as much sense as, say, God being a brute fact, a minded God being a brute fact. It's possible. Another option is to try to keep common sense notions about the mind and marry them to a scientific view of the universe. You end up maybe with something like property dualism, which is what I just was espousing to Yester, because I don't want to get into a deep discussion about what the mind is with him for obvious reasons. But I wanted to just not dispute that there are beliefs and desires. So that's like a middle route. Similarly, maybe another view, which I'm just going to put on like the radical side, is that a lot of what we think about the mind isn't real, right? It's illusionary of some sort. Is that the right word, JJ? So anyway,
Illusory, you mean?
illusory. Thank you. So there are things I think that probably are real, like some propositional attitudes, but I'm open to the idea that we're not conscious, which seems crazy, but I think there are at least some reasons to believe that. So all of those accounts, I don't have to talk about God at all. I don't think invoking God explains the existence of minds, because God's own mind would then be inexplicable if he's the brute fact. So either the explanation, there's a bridge law between the mental and the physical. There's no bridge law and it's eliminated, or they're both fundamental. And invoking God doesn't really seem to make a difference.
Okay. And I guess, yeah, I have another question. So, am I like the same person like every moment from like 1 second to the next second to the next second? Or
I
is
don't.
it like
Well,
different?
yeah. So, this is gonna have a complicated answer too, but I'll make it easy. So I think the real answer is no. If we have our scientist or philosopher cap on, a lot of what we mean by personhood is just somebody deserving of like moral praiseworthiness or blame, or it stands in the right relationships to a certain psychology, and that can be understood causally. I think the answer is clearly no. I'm not identical to the person that I was 30 years ago, well, 25 years ago. That's clear. I'm not that person anymore. There's some things that are psychologically connected, like scattered memories, but for the most part, all those are gone. So I think personal identity is a bit of a meme. However, in common parlance, we're not asking for, is there a center of being, a soul pearl which rides along in a brain forever and ever? Usually it just means, are you responsible for this action, or do you have access to this information because this body lived through it or something like that? And I think it's perfectly fine to say you're the same person as you were yesterday.
Wait. Okay, so that's okay. Do you believe in morality?
I believe that people say things like X is wrong.
Well, do you like, let's say if I go and I kick a puppy, would that be evil, or?
I would say it's evil, yeah. But I don't think it's literally true that you ought not kick a puppy. I don't think the universe cares one way or the other, but I think persons with attitudes about puppies do.
Okay. So you would agree with like Richard Dawkins, like there's no up nor down, no good nor evil, nothing but blind, pitiless indifference in the universe?
Well, that's a bit reductionist. I think we live in a rich social world where all kinds of things can be right or wrong. Like you mentioned, if you kicked a puppy and I saw it, I would try to convince you not to do it, and I would say the words, that's wrong, or you shouldn't do that. But if you're asking me if there are moral properties in the world, I think the answer is no. I think all I'm doing really is that sentence behind it is a set of attitudes, and likely they're not belief like. They're more like attitudes like disgust, and that's what I'm relaying to you. So it's closer to saying stop than, hey, did you know that one of the things about the universe is that it's wrong to kick dogs? I'm obviously not doing that.
Hmm. Yeah. So they're like social constructs.
Um, social, they're social constructs, but they're deeply psychological as well. Yeah.
So
Been
do
accused
you
of
think
sophistry.
do you think you can get meaning from like a social construct, or just like something
Yeah.
just
If I understand what you, yeah, I deeply care about what my social group thinks about me for sure. And if that's what we mean by meaning, then yes.
well like so yeah, so if it's just like an opinion, like it's just an opinion that kicking a puppy is wrong, or it's just an opinion, like everybody has opinions, and then our morality, it kind of determines the foundation for how we determine how we're going to lead our life, what we're going to do with our life, the purpose of what we do. Like some people, they say, okay, I value my race, my ethnicity, my heritage, and
Hmm.
so then they will live their life in a way that promotes like protecting their race or their heritage.
Hmm.
That gives like their life meaning. And then some other people might be like, oh, I value the forest, right? I want to protect wildlife. And so then they live their life trying to protect forests. And then other people might be like, well, only my life matters, like no one else's life matters, right? So they just live for the
Hmm.
maximization of their own pleasure, right? So
Yeah.
from our system of morality, from our beliefs, stems meaning, like purpose, and like why am I living? Where am I going? What am I doing with my life?
Hmm.
And um, from what you said, is it's not actual, right? It doesn't exist outside of the mind, outside of
Yeah.
you or me. It's just an opinion.
Well, when you say it's just an opinion, I think that
Uh,
undersells it.
I was
I have an opinion that Backstreet Boys were better than NSYNC. I don't really care that much about it though. What's interesting about morality is that morality stems from our deepest seated attitudes about everything. So we can say it's just an opinion in that there's not something that I can appeal to objective that's going to settle whether or not the proposition kicking dogs is wrong is true. You're right about that. But to say that it's just an opinion is underselling how important it is in our psychological lives. It's deeply connected to our motivational states, things that make us tick, things that move our body around through the world. So I don't want to undersell it and say it's just an opinion, like an opinion about some musical artist being better than another. It's not like that.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask
But
you,
yeah, so
Water, what you mean when you use that word just? I mean, when you say it's just an opinion, what's the difference between saying it's an opinion and just an opinion? Why do you feel it important to use that qualifier?
well, yeah, like I think like basically an opinion isn't like it's not, it can't really substantiate morality. Like it's yeah, the example I like to use is to imagine if we were on a beach and everyone got a stick and they're asked to draw the line in the sand between good and evil, between right and wrong. You might draw it in one location, right? You might say human life is valuable, like I care about human life. You draw in one location. Another person might say only my family's life is valuable. And another person might say only my race's life is valuable. Another person might say only my life is valuable, right? So each person is drawing a different line in a different location, and then the question is like which person's line um, is the ought claim that overrides other people's, and it wouldn't be anyone's because they're all just different people with different opinions drawing lines in the sand, and at the end of the day, it would be might makes right. And so when I say it's like just an opinion, it's like it's not like my belief. Morality needs to be universal. It's objective, right? Morality is a claim with authority. You ought not beat your wife. You ought to be kind to orphans, right? If it's just my opinion, you ought not beat your wife. Well, I can go to the neighbor next door. Yeah, in my opinion, you shouldn't beat your wife. It's like, oh well, yeah, in my opinion, I should. I'm like, well, I guess it just comes down to whoever has more force, right? It's just might makes right. But if there is if there's objective morality, if there is a right outside of my mind, outside of your mind, then it doesn't matter whether I overpower my neighbor physically or he overpowers me. You ought not beat your wife is right. Like, it's right not to beat your wife, regardless over who is the stronger person physically, right? There's this external law to whom we are all accountable to, whether we agree with it or not. So that's kind of why I say just an opinion, because I don't think that an opinion can really substantiate morality. Like, it's just
Well, let me add something there. So you made a really interesting point, which is that if only we had an objective law of some sort governing the kicking of dogs or the beating of your wife, then we could be saved in some way, or at least we'd be able to say with confidence that X is wrong. Why that doesn't really matter, though, is this is a strange kind of law, because laws of physics we can't ignore, right? The law of gravity just applies no matter what anybody thinks of it. In some way, that's like a descriptive law, whereas moral laws aren't like that at all. They're normative. They might tell you which thing is right or wrong, but it doesn't tell you how you can and can't behave, only how you should or shouldn't behave. So fundamentally, it wouldn't make a difference if moral laws existed or not, because you have to care about them. So the problem with, like, let's imagine your neighbor and his wife who's in the middle of an ass whooping, and you say, hey, I don't know if you know this or not, but beating your wife is actually wrong. And he say, wait, are you serious? I didn't know that. I guess I better stop right away. That sort of thing is highly unlikely, because you have to be motivated to care about those laws in the first place. So what I'm doing in my account is skipping the middleman, which just seems to rubber stamp the behavior that we're going to do anyway. So the idea that moral laws would explain behavior is certainly out, unless, of course, somebody cared about them already. But then what's interesting is their psychological attitudes towards a moral law, not the moral law itself. So we really wouldn't see a different universe whatsoever, except people who said beating your wife is wrong, in this case, would be speaking correctly, but it would be immaterial to behavior. That's why moral laws are so weird. We have lots of examples of laws that are descriptive, and they actually govern behavior of what you can and can't do, but moral laws don't do that. They only tell us what you should or shouldn't do, and unless you care about them, they're explanatorily irrelevant. So I kind of understand what you mean, but I just don't think it's a I think your worries about the universe being different are unfounded. They'd be the exact same.
Can I ask a question?
No.
Why not? Are you afraid that I'm gonna dismantle your argument?
I'm afraid that you're gonna talk, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So
We can
what
pick
does
this
it
up later,
mean?
Concrete.
Yeah, later.
See it. Yeah, so yeah, I just kind of believe that without objective morality, so morality that is independent of your mind or my mind, that would just simply lead to nihilism, that nothing matters. I think subject morality that's based upon one's opinion, is illusory, right? It doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know,
Well, let's
I-
take one thing. I really don't want to step over you, I promise. But you said something interesting there, which is that if morality is based on opinion, and really what we're grounding it on isn't opinion, but on your motivational states, like a desire. A desire to, say, eat popcorn isn't an opinion. An opinion is like a belief, like this popcorn, or I can get popcorn at the movie theater. That's a belief, it's an opinion. But that doesn't really explain what morality is. Morality is more like the engine of action that lives inside of people. And it's a thing like a desire that moves you around. Just because I believe that there's popcorn at the movie theater, that's not enough to explain why I went and got it. I have to also have the desire to go get popcorn somewhere, anywhere, wherever my beliefs point me. But the point is not that it's just an opinion. This is the engine of human action. That's where morality sits. And I just wanted to jump in for a quick second, make a quick clarification that it's not an opinion, it's like a motivational set that we might have.
yeah, I guess that's fair. Yeah, so I guess I was thinking also on something else as well. So if we are just like atoms, or we're just molecules in motion, right? So matter hitting matter wouldn't matter. So essentially nothing would matter, right? And nihilism would be true, that nothing matters, right? If we're just atoms and molecules moving around.
Well, a lot of this is just going to depend on what you mean by matter. So certainly it matters to me, as in I have a motivation to stay alive, even though I'm nothing but presumably some collection of atoms, which I don't think is entirely true, but correct. I don't also have like soul particles. So if you're saying, does anything matter to me? The answer is yes. Lots of things matter to me. If you're saying, will somebody care about me after the heat death of the universe, or will I be totally forgotten? The answer is obviously nobody's going to care about me, and nobody will remember me after the heat death of the universe. And if what you mean by does anything matter is, does anything that I do stick around indefinitely? The answer is no. I at least don't have reason to believe that.
Well, if we just look at things like atoms, like I'm one collection of atoms, and like the dog is another collection of atoms, and then out of maliciousness I kick the dog, it's just atoms colliding with atoms, and there is no moral significance to the collision of atoms with atoms, right? It's like,
Well, do you think that there can be desires in a universe where there's only matter and motion?
From the Christian perspective, or from the materialist, like
From well, let me put it another way. I think we might be bumping into one type of issue, which is like the fallacy of composition, which that anything that's true of a macro object has to be true of its individual particles. And that's not entirely true, I don't think. There's an easy example is that even though bricks aren't square, a wall can be square, even though it's made of nothing but bricks. So certainly there are some things that can be true. Also, there are things like, I don't know, blenders, which can blend food, but individual atoms cannot. Similarly, I think I have desires, and I don't think individual, pieces of matter have desires, but I think I do, even though.
Are you a materialist? Like all that exists is atoms, energy, and like no soul, no angels.
Yeah.
Okay. So would you say that your brain is just like electrons and chemical reactions going on?
That is what my brain is constituted of, yeah.
And so a desire is just like a brain state.
That's correct. Yeah.
So it's just like different arrangements of atoms. And so like with your example with the bricks, like I think a better analogy would be if we had a bunch of bricks and they were all gray, but we said if we arrange them in a certain way, they're going to become colorful, right? No matter how we arrange these bricks, they're not going to become colorful. And I think that is what like meaning and morality is. It's something that surpasses the physical. It surpasses bricks, right? Like
Yeah.
bricks hitting bricks isn't an evil thing.
Right.
But like
Well,
someone
I would
using
say it's more like blending, right? Morality is more like blending. It moves stuff around aggressively, that sort of thing. But ultimately, we can understand it in some sense in terms of like biophysics.
Yep.
So I agree with you. And I'm saying I accept your criticism that in my worldview, morality ends up being a lot less magical. And I don't mean that actually in an insulting fashion. It ends up being like disappointingly more gray. Okay, well, all it was is this set of blenders blending. And I wish it was something more, because what I want to do is to be able to say that no matter when, from all time, what Hitler did was wrong. And I need that, and I feel very strongly about that. And I get that. And yeah, it's true. What I'm putting forward has certain entailments about really horrible behavior.
Do you believe that you have free will?
No.
Like what do you believe that you have?
Well, largely, I believe that the same sorts of laws that govern, the movement of heavenly bodies around their stars are the same that govern me.
So we're like dominoes. So it's just like domino effect straight from beginning the universe to us.
Yeah.
So there's no personal accountability for one's actions. Like, if I murder someone or, just like.
You're kind of breaking up, Water.
Torture.
You're roboting just a little bit for me, Water.
All right, I'll try rejoining.
All right, let Concrete out while he's away.
No.
Oh my god.
Never.
Wait, so can I just ask a question real quick?
Real quick, Paige.
So, so if one says that they don't have free will, that means that they believe in predestination?
Well, predestination has kind of theological implications, but it does seem like if a certain view of the universe is correct, then given the initial state of, or at least maybe a second into the Big Bang, plus all the laws of physics, you could, those entail everything that's happened afterwards.
Hey, JHC.
Yeah.
See, it just seems to me like that you don't have to actually die on any of these hills, right?
No.
Because the thing is, right, what's really at stake in these discussions, it seems to me, is that there's an or maybe sometimes stated assumption that if there were these problems, they could somehow be solved by
God.
By God, right? The
Yeah.
fact is, you could grant them everything, right? You could say, here's a mystery we don't have an explanation for. Here's a mystery we don't have an explanation for, right? Now, I think all you're going to get are three things, right? Just those stories, claims that are just untenable, right? Which is that you could actually ground some kind of objective normativity in God's nature, right? That's just like the problem that's being raised there about how is it objective isn't actually solved by positing a God, right? You're just going to get some kind of divine subjectivism, right?
Right.
So there's that, right? And pragmatic justifiers. because it's true. Both, most atheists are going to die on a hill which denies immortality. I mean, I guess you could be an atheist and believe in immortality, but most atheists outside of India, right?
Bertrand Russell's teacher, Bertrand Russell's idealistic teacher, was an atheist and believed in the immortality of the soul.
You mean McTaggart, or who?
McTaggart.
Yeah, McTaggart. Yeah, but yeah, he represents a very fringe minority tendency today in Anglophone philosophy.
But logically coherent, I believe.
Yeah, perhaps. But I'm just saying you could grant them all of that, right? And just say to them, well, look, if you think there's an explanatory problem on atheism, show me how you're either offering a solution, which they're not offering in the case of morality. They just are making some kind of naturalistic fallacy error, thinking that they don't get divine subjectivism by having God be the creator or somehow the ground of morality, whatever that means, right? Or show me how you're not giving me a just so story. Or show me how you're not giving me anything more than pragmatic justifications to believe, right?
Like in the case of morality, I don't think that there's an issue that Water brought up, even that I don't think Water thinks that there's an explanatory issue with the account I have. But the point is, it would be preferable if there is objective morality or something like that.
But the point is, right? Let's say you were an atheist realist of the Parfit type, right? Then that doesn't require a God, right?
No, likely not. No.
Yeah. So the point is, it's not as though there's some problem that can't be solved on atheism that somehow theism can solve.
Right.
Right. I mean, the only way they solve it in the cases where they're actually solving it, because right, in the morality case, they're just they just think they have a solution that they don't have. The only way they solve it is by supplying a just so story.
That's right. And it's that way with anything that's presumptively normative.
Right.
Could God set the laws of physics? Sure. He can spin those up. But yeah, it doesn't really make sense to me that normative laws, God could have anything to do with them in a way that doesn't just bottom out in the same kind of brute factness that any other account would.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. In which case, God is odious.
Right.
Well, so my overall point is that, like, as a materialist, to be consistent, one should be a nihilist.
Well,
what do you mean by
the point I was making was, we don't have to die on the hill of materialism, right? Atheists don't have to die on the hill of materialism, right? They could say, well, they could grant you that objection. JHC could grant you that objection for the sake of argument, even if he is a materialist, right? Problem is, what problem would you raise to the non-materialist atheist that positing a supernatural creator or, the God of Christianity would solve?
I don't know. I'd have to talk to them.
The argument's that the God of Christianity is true, not that, I don't know, some materialist atheism is false. That wouldn't get you there.
Right, exactly.
But essentially, like you were saying that we're nothing, like we're kind of like just similar to just dominoes falling, like from the Big Bang till now. No free will. No free will would lead to no personal accountability, because how we are is just we're just a product of our environment.
We're granted. Let's say that we're granted, right? And so instead, he does believe in free will, and he does believe in personal accountability and all these things, right?
But he doesn't.
What difference does that make? The point is, you're supposed to have an argument. You supposedly have a reason to think not just that materialism is false, but that atheism is false, and not just that atheism is false, that Christianity is true, right?
Yeah, so
but
all the non-Christian theisms have to be false.
Yeah, all non-Christian views are false, right? So
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to be able to deliver on that. On that requirement.
I can touch upon that as well, but I just think that like a lot of atheists don't take their beliefs to the logical conclusion. Like they don't go all the way.
So let's
they want to hold on to personal accountability. They want to hold on to morality.
Let's grant
They
you
want to
that
hold
for
on
the
to
sake
free
of
will.
argument. Let's grant you
When-
that for the sake of argument, right?
Well,
So
I want to hear what.
what
I
about
wanna
the
hear what
atheists?
Jay,
What about
JHC.
the atheists who do think that there's free will, who believe in categorical norms, right? There's lots of those around, right? Whatever else, you think people are not being consistent about or is too much to give up, right? So what about them? What's the criticism of their view?
Well, sure. So, yeah, I'm just gonna drink water real quick and then talk and
Well,
such.
let me give you the view real quick, which
Mhm.
might be unnecessary for the purpose, but just to give you an idea. So this guy named Derek Parfit, and he thinks there are reasons that you have no matter what your attitudes are like. And if that doesn't make any sense, that's fine. So imagine a person who it doesn't really seem on this view that you could desire your own unending torment, right? That's not a thing you can desire. Understanding torment to be something that's by definition undesirable. Otherwise, it's just like S&M, right? Can't enjoy it. It seems really hard to understand how you could actually desire that. Now, from that, he builds an ethical system. That seems to be a categorical norm, though. It applies to everybody. No living creature with the ability to be tormented could actually desire that. And from that, you get something like an objective system of morality. Now, I haven't said anything about God there. All I've said is something about the nature of rationality, that a rational being who has the ability to have desires and work towards a certain end, one of those ends could not be your own like unending torment. It's literally impossible. It's not, you could say the words, but you can't actually desire it. So I haven't mentioned a thing about God. This is just anybody who has beliefs and desires.
So is this like subjective morality?
It's actually not. It's not subjective because it applies to everyone regardless of what your motivational states are. No matter what your attitude is, you cannot desire your own unending torment.
Well, then it would be based on an authority that's external to your mind, right?
Yeah. Well, it's just it's something that you get for free by being like an agent who reasons. But the important thing is that the story, regardless of whether it's inside or outside of minds or in the universe, whatever, God isn't required in this equation.
Well, I guess like there's two objections, or just one. One is that I do believe that it is subjective. Like you defined it, and it was your personal view, which you believe should apply, ought to apply.
Hey, what's subjective about it?
Well, I can
It's
simply
not mind
say,
dependent, right?
well,
To be
the
subjective,
these norms. Yeah, go ahead, Jake.
To be subjective, usually it means that the truth or falsity of the judgment, in this case, unending torment is bad, that it's generated by our attitudes towards it. Now, what this view says is no matter what your attitudes are, any of them, you cannot actually desire unending torment if you understand what that is. Once you understand that, you actually can't desire it. So it's objective in the sense that it applies to everyone regardless of what your motivational states are. And that's what's meant by objective here. If you want to call that subjective, I'm not going to worry about it, but traditionally,
Why would somebody call that subjective?
Right. Traditionally, that's not called an objective ethic.
Well, I would like to like appeal to JHC and kind of ask like how does he define subjective and objective morality? Because I don't believe that's
He
how
just
it's
did. He just
Yeah.
did. He said that what makes
I said JHC.
Well, it's what I just said in that for it to be subjective.
I was asking to appeal to JHC to see what his opinion was on
That's me.
objective and subjective.
Hello?
Oh yeah.
Can I be heard right now?
Yeah, he was the one who said, right?
That was
that's
me.
What subjective means.
I'm JC. Hello.
Yeah, it means that what makes the proposition true or false is some attitude of a subject, right? But this is not Parfit's view.
All right, so yeah, I would disagree. I think subjective means that it is it's based upon one's opinion versus objective. So it's based upon a mind, like it's based on your mind or my mind. So maybe you might have a preference in vanilla or chocolate ice cream, like it's just your personal taste. So that would be like subjective, whereas objective would be not dependent on your mind.
Yeah, but that was the view that was described, one that was not dependent on a mind. That's the view that JHC.
No matter what you're so a subjective truth is that chocolate ice cream is better than vanilla ice cream. That's subjective. What makes it true is that I desire this certain flavor and I believe that chocolate ice cream has it. So my mind's attitudes, namely the like of chocolate ice cream, generates the truth for me, the subjective truth for me, that chocolate ice cream is better than vanilla ice cream. Now, what I've described, Parfit's view of ethics, the reason it's objective is no matter what my desires are, no matter what I like, no matter what I dislike, understanding torment in a certain way, nobody can actually desire it. So it's independent of our motivational states. That's what's meant by objective. Because so that's the way that I mean objective. Now, if you hear that and you say I just want to use the word subjective, that's fine. What's really important here is that it becomes universal, that certain things are off limits for everyone at all times, even aliens and other planets, anybody. It becomes true for them that unending torment is wrong. Now that's what's important. And that along with the fact that we didn't have to invoke a God in order to explain how that sort of thing could be true.
Well, yeah, so I'm just thinking. You said that we're akin to like dominoes, like so from the beginning of the universe, Big Bang, cause and effect, dominoes all the way down till now, and we're just a product of our environment. Electrons firing off in our brain, chemical reactions going off. Everything is just a domino reaction. Everything I do is just caused by something else. Free will doesn't exist. There is no personal accountability. So if the radius goes,
we were challenging that, right? We were saying
like
we were
where do you
saying
get this
that
morality
you could
from dominoes falling over?
Yeah,
It's
we
like,
were saying, right, that atheists don't have to die on the hill of materialism, right?
Right, that happens to be my view.
Yeah,
but
the point is,
it's also my view. Also, is probably the minority. Most atheists likely don't believe lockstep with the things that I'm saying. I happen to believe that, but as long as there are people like Derek Parfit, well, I guess there aren't people like him because he's recently dead. But as long as there are atheists who put forward a theory that seems more or less coherent, there's lots of options without God. Now, it is true that I'm closer to, like, you said Richard Dawkins. And I'm going to give you that. I'm going to say I'm closer to his view, even though I really don't. I'm really like mentally uncomfortable being grouped with him for a lot of reasons. But anyway, the point is, yes, it is my view. Atheists have a lot of different views because literally atheism is just the view that there's no God. Everything else is kind of on the table. You could have libertarian free will. It's not coherent, but supposing that it were, you could be a libertarian about free will
Yeah,
and
you
be
can
an
be a
atheist.
moral realist. You can believe in personal accountability. You can believe in all those things and be an atheist.
Okay.
Yeah.
You could
I
even
don't,
believe in
but
personal immortality.
right.
Okay.
Certainly.
But yeah,
Yeah,
so
but you
so-
won't have my respect as an atheist until you get some street cred. You got to do something. You know, you can't just
Sugar,
walk
shut up.
Shut up, sugar.
it's funny.
You
I
motherfuckers
like that.
have.
But
Stop it.
But yeah, like I'll just go and try and do the talk about God and such then. So essentially, you know, if you reject the Christian God, right?
Mhm.
If you like, let's say you look at an apple. What is happening in actuality, right? This is just so stories, right? It's either just so that there is the Christian God and the Christian God does exist and He does reveal truth to you, from which you can reason from, or it is just so that there is no Christian God and nothing can be known, right? So
Well,
these are two just so stories. It's not that I assume that God exists, therefore He exists. It's not that you know you like it doesn't like truth doesn't come from us essentially. So what is actually happening, right, is that the Christian God exists, right, and that He reveals to you through divine revelation that when you look at the apple, right, He reveals absolute knowledge, that your sense of observation reveals reality to you. So when you look at the apple is real, and you know this to be true. Like, oh, I know that this is reality, right? This is real.
how do you know
well,
that though?
It's the impossibility of the contrary.
Why is
So
it why is it impossible that God reveals to you something that's false?
Well, if God were to reveal falsehood to you or to me, then nothing would be intelligible, right? We wouldn't be able to know anything. And the just so story that I posit that not I posit, but I believe is true. I believe this is the universe we actually inhabit currently right now.
What you
Is the one
need
with the Christian God, right?
you
So the one
need is
that
an argument. What you need is an actual
perfectly
argument.
always truth revealing.
What you need is an argument, right?
Yeah,
That establishes the
yeah,
first premise of your argument, right? Which is something like knowledge and intelligibility are possible if and only if the Christian God exists, right? So now, if you're asked to justify that claim, and you say due to the impossibility of the contrary, you're just repeating the claim.
Yeah,
right?
that's their weakness, though. I mean,
Well, I would say the
asking for an
first.
argument.
Yeah, I would say like the first thing, like the first thing that I would start with or premise or something, would be that reasoning from you cannot reason from arbitrary assumptions, and I believe that apart from the Christian God,
Yeah, but that's what we're not
you're just
accepting.
You're just starting with an arbitrary
Yeah,
assumption.
but just
But
repeating-
why would a Christian? Why would a non-Christian accept what you're saying that you just believe? So you're saying, I believe that if God doesn't exist, then there's no knowledge. But why in the world would an atheist accept that? It doesn't seem to me. So let's take two
So how do
propositions.
you?
The proposition that I know some things, and the proposition God does not exist. Presumably, you think there's a tension between those two, but it doesn't seem in a straightforward manner that those two things contradict each other. Seems that both could be true.
Well, like, do you know that the law of cause and effect exists?
No, they don't.
That's irrelevant, really. The point is the burden of proof. Burden of proof is on you to give the argument, not to ask a question, right? See, you're making a very strong claim, right? Which is that knowledge and intelligibility are only possible if the Christian God exists. Now, I take it that means that any other worldview entails a contradiction. And presumably what that entails is that there's some a priori argument that establishes that the Christian God exists, right?
Yeah. So my first premise was that reasoning from arbitrary assumptions is invalid, right? Would you accept that
Well,
premise?
yeah. Let's say if there's no interesting connection between there's no interesting connection between your prior beliefs and your current beliefs, if they're in some kind of chain with each other, but it's not rational, then yeah, that's what it would be, irrational by definition, kind of
Okay.
by definition of arbitrary. But why would I accept that if God doesn't exist, that's what we have?
So yeah, so my second premise is that like basically all other worldviews would be
That's the claim we're asking you to defend.
asserting, like
Yeah,
starting from a place where it's just asserting an arbitrary assumption. So like
you're not
like,
just
yeah,
saying
pretty much
all
how
other
do you know
worldviews.
cause and effect exists? Like that's the question. Like how do you
Not
know
just
that?
saying no.
So,
It's
so
not about. It's not
it's
how
a comparison.
we know it.
It's a comparison of just so stories, right? In
No,
my
no, no,
just so
no, no,
story,
no, no,
it's
no,
a
no.
given. Right? It's a
We're
given
not
that cause and effect
interested.
exists. In
We're
your
not
just so
interested.
story,
No, no, no.
it's unknown, right?
Okay, well then let's say it's unknown. Okay, we believe in the law of cause effect. We don't know how it's justified. Okay, but that underdetermines your argument. Your argument isn't that without God you wouldn't know how belief in the law of the laws of causation are justified. It's that they can't be. So even if I don't know why it's rational to believe in the laws of causation, that's not enough to justify your claim that without God there can't be. It could be that we just haven't done enough philosophy yet. So what we need is, we could just be in a state of ignorance. What we need is a stronger claim. We need a proof. We need a proof that without God, it's logically impossible for there to be knowledge. Not whenever you say, how do you justify X? That it doesn't matter. Maybe I don't have any justification. Maybe I don't know how to do that. But that doesn't matter, because that doesn't say that that doesn't prove that without God there isn't knowledge. That just says there's at least some items that we don't know how it's knowledge yet at best.
Do you agree with that, Water?
Like I don't agree, but
see, the real question is, there has to be
It's
a
like-
property specific to the Christian God, right? That no other worldview could have, right? That solves this problem, right? So if you had an argument to establish that there had to be a God, right? That wouldn't show that the Christian God existed, right? If you had an argument to establish that God had to be triune, right? That wouldn't show that the Christian God existed, right? If you had an argument to show that a God existed and that God would have to be incarnated, right? That wouldn't show that the Christian God existed, right? So you're making a very strong claim. You're basically making a claim, I think, that in order for there to be knowledge and intelligibility, right, every word of the Bible has to be true, right? And that the God has to be triune. There has to be a God. That God has to be triune. That God has to be incarnated, and the person in whom he's incarnated was Jesus of Nazareth, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
I just don't see how you have an argument for any of those things.
But yeah, those are all true.
Yeah, so give me the
all true.
Yeah,
Okay, all right, Andrews.
The Bible is true.
That's the claim we're asking
God
you to defend.
did send Jesus Christ, right?
Yeah, we're not asking you to repeat the claim. We're asking you to give us the a priori argument that establishes that.
So yeah, so I can just kind of say what it is right. What is in actuality is that God exists. The Christian God exists, right? He is truth. He is absolute truth. The Bible says He's always truth revealing.
Just making
He
claims.
never. So
well, hold on, Water. Let's pause for a
here's
second.
here's a couple things, I guess. Questions. Well, not questions, but what? Like, I guess the thing is, like, what is truth, right? So truth is that which comports with reality at a given moment, and truth has multiple properties, right? Truth is not dependent on your mind or my mind. At a given
Some
moment,
of it is. Some of it is, right? If
well,
I'm in pain, if my mind doesn't exist, the truth goes away. You
Sure.
can't be in pain with no mind.
But
Certainly,
it
some of
doesn't
it
seem
does.
like but it doesn't seem like he's understanding what he's being
at a given
asked to
moment,
provide,
at a
right?
given moment means like a
Yeah.
time index, right?
Well,
So-
yeah, that's fine. It's indexed. It can be indexed to a time. It can be indexed to a person. So, is there something about the nature of truth that means without God, knowledge goes away?
Yeah, definitely. So basically, yeah, truth has multiple properties. So truth is that which comports with reality at a given moment. Yeah, but sorry, my voice is messed up.
It's okay.
But yeah, so truth is that which comports with reality at a given moment. At a given moment is very important because that means it's a specific time index. Because some people like to say that truth changes, right? But truth does not change, right? The moment changes, the specific time index changes. So I can be alive today and dead tomorrow, but the truth didn't change. What changed was the moment, was the specific time index. So truth is absolute, right? Same today, tomorrow, and forever. And so that's one property. Another property is that truth is not dependent on your mind or my mind, right? I can look at a dog and say, okay, I believe this dog is an ice cream. I really think so, or this is just it is an ice cream. I can't warp reality and turn that dog into an ice cream. Right? It won't happen.
This is not what we're asking you to do.
The property of truth, right? That it is not dependent on your mind or my mind. And the final property of truth is that truth is self-revelatory, right? It reveals itself to you, and it reveals itself to me. And without this revelation, we would simply be stuck at hard solipsism, right? We simply would not know. We wouldn't know anything. Like how do you know that when your sense of observation is true? You observe reality. How do you know cause and effect exists? How do you know you have free will? Or I guess suppose you deny free will. But yeah, so those are things that you wouldn't know. And the thing is basically the Christian God is the only being that can fulfill all these different properties.
That's the claim we're asking you to defend.
God is the Bible says that God is the same today and tomorrow. That He's always truth revealing.
We're gonna have a preaching time. We're gonna have a discussion of these.
Yeah, the point is you're just repeating.
And
you're just repeating that claim.
God also reveals to you that cause and effect exists.
Can somebody?
Yeah, let's.
Somebody stop.
Hang on a sec.
Stop talking over people, man.
It's kind of tiresome to hear this, right?
Let me help out if I can.
Everybody calm down.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me help out if I can. So I think you said a lot of things that are right about truth. Truth is some kind of statement is true if and only if the state of affairs is thus and so, right? This ball is red if and only this ball is red is true if and only if the ball is red. I agree with that. All of that, I just don't understand so we're not really talking about truth per se. We're talking about knowledge. It doesn't really seem like there's an issue of truth on the atheist worldview, whatever that is, if it is a coherent worldview, but minimally a universe without God, things could be true. The issue here is whether or not we could be justified in believing it, right? So can an atheist ever be justified in a universe without God? That can they be justified in their belief that a ball is red? Now, you seem to think that without God, the answer is no. And not for some contingent reason, but necessarily. Like, it's literally impossible once you lose God. It becomes impossible to have a justified belief that the ball is red. And I think what we want to know is why would somebody accept that? Why would somebody accept, and here's maybe why it seems honestly a little ridiculous. If I were to say to you that without my light bulb only being plugged in halfway into the lamp, you can't know anything for sure. You would be like, okay, why in the world would I ever believe something like that? That's a really strong claim. That's sort of what it sounds like. Because justification is tricky to get, right? Now, it can't just be that you have the belief that God exists and beliefs are magically popping into your head and you feel justified. That can't be it. I think the story that you've given so far about God and knowledge is similar to that. Well, I have the belief that God exists, and I also have the belief that he's revealed things to me in such a way that I can be certain. We're not interested if you have that belief. We're interested in why that entails that the existence of God is the only way for us to have knowledge, because that seems radically unjustified.
Of
Yeah,
God, not
yeah,
just
it's not a question. It's not a question of beliefs. It's a question of ontologies. Right? Ontologies is what is. It's a comparison of just so stories. You have your just so story. It's the one of materialism, where we're nothing more than dominoes, essentially matter in motion, and electrons bouncing around in our heads, chemical reactions firing off, biological robots, input, algorithm, output, and yeah, that's one just so story. And the other just so story is that there is a Christian God who created you, who created me,
Look,
who has
you're just
revealed
you're not
truth,
you're
right?
not
Has
you're
revealed
not you're
truth to
just
you and me,
repeating
like
you're just
cause and
repeating
effect exists,
yourself.
and
You're just repeating
your
yourself.
observation is you can observe reality. So
Look,
I wanted to move on to something else actually. So the like
without moving on
the
to the
reason,
argument.
like something that's really good and important about the Christian God, right, is that we do have free will, right? We do have souls, right? Souls are immaterial constructs, right, that allow you to choose between like an apple or a cake in the morning, right? And so we do have personal accountability. We are accountable for our own actions, right? We're not just dominoes. And so if I go out and I kick a
Why are
puppy,
we listening to this?
I chose to do that, right? That is
Why are we listening
my
to
All right,
this?
all right.
Right?
Water,
Just
water.
stop him. He's just going to go
Well,
on
okay,
for
Red.
5 minutes.
Okay. Jack,
I just
please,
want to make a
please
point.
don't.
Sorry.
Please try to refrain from making moderation demands, because that's just not how we want to do things. I
Okay,
understand. I understand. You don't even have to say it. I get it. I get it. Water. So I think what everyone just wants to know is the argument for one specific claim. Do you remember what that claim is?
So the question was basically, how do you justify that? I guess knowledge or something.
No.
Well, you're saying something like you can't have knowledge or intelligibility without the Christian God, something like that, right?
Sure, but I think
And
that's
for
substantiated.
Perhaps for the last half hour, all they want to know is the argument for that. So it's going to come in the form of something like this. I'll give you a head start. You can't have knowledge or intelligibility without the Christian God because blank.
Reasoning from arbitrary assumptions is invalid. So I'll give you an example.
Okay, hold on a sec. Yeah, reasoning from arbitrary. What does that mean?
Yeah, I'll give you an example, right?
How is believing in the Christian God not arbitrary?
Well, come on.
It's just so. It is the case that the Christian God exists, and if that is not the case, then nothing can be known, right?
Just so.
Well, you're begging the question there.
Well, you have
hey,
your
guys,
personal
what we're not going to do is talk
How
over each other.
How is believing in
Stop.
causation as a properly basic belief arbitrary, and not believing in the Christian God not arbitrary? That's what I'd like to know.
Okay, so I'll give an example, right? If you and we were to go to the Grand Canyon, right, and we were to look down, it's just a straight drop down, right? And I were to say, I can walk on air, right? I believe, I assume that I can walk on air. And there's this bridge over there, but I'm going to take a shortcut, right? I'm not going to use the bridge. I'm just going to go right across the air, walk right across, get to the other side, hop in my car, drive home, and eat breakfast, live a nice life, right? This is a chain of reasoning following an assumption. And it doesn't matter how sound the chain of reasoning is if the initial assumption is not true, right? And so with
Yeah, but that's what we're trying to figure out, is if it's true, right? And they're wanting to know the argument for why it's true.
Okay. So with like cause and effect, it in my just so story, it's a given, right? God has given you this absolute knowledge. So it's a given. In your just so story, it's a question mark, right? Maybe yes, maybe no, maybe I don't know, right? Maybe cause and effect exists, maybe it doesn't exist. Maybe it's just I don't
Can
know.
I ask you a question,
Right?
Water, about that?
And all options are equally valid. Yep.
So, you said that in the Christian worldview, knowledge of cause and effect is a given. Now, that seems to be doing some work for you, because I can always ask here's the bummer about knowledge. I can always ask why or how. How do you know this? Right? That's just it. It seems to lead to something either like an infinite regress or something that's rock solid. And you seem to be saying it lands in something, it bottoms out in something rock solid, namely God. But it seems like since God's an agent, he could have all sorts of different desires and ends. And it seems like he could be lying to you if he wanted you to. It seems very difficult to understand how you can be justified in your belief that you know that causation exists because God revealed it to you, because God may very well be revealing something false to you, or he might not care to reveal something to you in such a way that you get it right. He might just be like, look, I'm going to create this stuff. I'm kind of bored, whatever. And I'm just going to put these beliefs in their heads because I'm interested in seeing them fight about the nature of justification. Right? These are
Can I
possible.
Sorry.
No,
I'd
go
like
ahead.
to add something though, because I think that's a good question, but I think there's a deeper problem, which is that when he was asked to provide an argument, what he started to do was say, "Here's your just so story, here's my just so story, right? And my just so story is better, right?" But the claim that he's making is much stronger than that I have a more plausible explanation, right, for various phenomena that we might affirm, right? He's saying that necessarily, right, the only way you could have an explanation for these phenomena is my way, right? And so to provide a just so story is just not to understand the demand, which is to give some kind of deductive a priori argument, right, that establishes the truth of the claim, and one that's not question begging to boot, right? So it's just like, it just doesn't seem like he's understanding what he needs to provide.
Yeah. How is one just so story arbitrary and another one not? That's that's what my question is. Because I'll grant that we start with just so stories. You know, we're foundationalists. Yeah, we're going to start with just so stories.
See, what I'm saying,
Okay.
Floyd, is
So here's
what
the
I'm saying
question then.
is that we
If
can
Hold
grant.
on a sec. One sec, Water.
What I'm saying, Floyd, is we can grant that one is arbitrary and one is non-arbitrary for the sake of argument, right? But that would at best provide some kind of abductive argument, right? But he's not making a mere abductive claim, right? Because abductive claims are probabilistic in nature, right? He's saying that necessarily, right, this is the only way you could have an explanatory story for all this, right? So to even provide a just so story is just not to understand the demand that's being placed for him.
Yeah, and he doesn't seem to want to perform an internal critique of other worldviews. He's simply
No, he's
labeling.
totally ready. He's totally ready to do that. But we're saying that you have to do more than that, because
Well, I don't think he is, because he's labeling the starting points of other worldviews as arbitrary.
No, but the point is, right, if he's, I'm sure if you said, show me what's wrong with my worldview, right, he'll try to show that there's some contradiction entailed by the worldview in question, right? I don't think he would disavow that, right?
Well, he did.
The
He did.
problem
He
is,
said we can't start with arbitrary assumptions. So
no, but I mean, when he was asking JHC about his worldview, he was trying to show that there were contradictions, or weren't good explanations there, right? But the problem is that if you did that one by one with every worldview presented to you, that doesn't actually show the truth of that doesn't demonstrate the truth of the stronger claim, which is the claim that he's making, which is that necessarily the Christian worldview is the only one that could account for these things.
the only way he could do that is he has to disprove every other.
No. What he
No,
has
that
to
would
do, he doesn't
underdetermine.
have to do that. And in fact, that wouldn't actually accomplish it, right? Because
He
there
has
could
to
be an
disprove them
infinity.
a priori.
It has to be a priori. There could be an infinity of worldviews, right?
Mm.
So he'd have to show that every possible worldview is necessarily self-contradictory, right?
Right. Yeah.
So there has to be something about the existence of God inexorably tied the
Just the
concept of
existence of God,
justification, right?
not just the existence of God,
Or
but
the Christian God, right?
Yes, of the Christian.
Yeah.
Right.
Saying the contrary is impossible is just another way of saying what is not contrary is necessary. If A is necessary, is just another way of saying not A is impossible.
Yeah, so it's not an answer to the question for justification to say due to the impossibility of the contrary, because to say that is just to repeat the claim, not to provide the justification.
Exactly. Yeah, you're just saying the same thing. If you say X is necessary because not X is impossible, you're just repeating the same thing. You're saying X is necessary because X is necessary. You're not providing any new information or reason or justification in that statement.
And so, Water, I'm gonna give you a chance to respond, but it's really just in general, it's very hard to show that things are impossible, and asking somebody for an account of how it is possible, shut up, Cat, is going to underdetermine your case. If there's something about Christianity that's linked to knowledge, then it doesn't really matter about my worldview whatsoever, right? My worldview could be that God created the universe, ensured that there are blind mechanisms that justify everybody's beliefs, and then he committed deicide, he killed himself, right? So now I'm an atheist, and I'm justified in my beliefs. There's a million kind of silly scenarios like that. It doesn't really matter what my worldview is. The argument is going to have to come from your side. It can't be anything that I say. I want to know what it is about Christianity that's so structurally tied to justification that nobody else can have it.
Well, yeah. So I would just say that truth has properties. The ones that I listed earlier. That it's not dependent on your mind or my mind, and it doesn't change, self-revelatory, those sorts of things.
Good.
And,
so let's mark down these
also,
properties.
Right.
So one is
regards to other worldviews, they just don't have what it takes to substantiate this.
Okay.
Yeah, and
so maybe we just haven't thought up the right religion yet, right?
So
is that your view?
It's not to think of. So for example, if you cease to exist and I cease to exist and all human beings with minds cease to exist and like animal minds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that the earth would still exist?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not that you believed the earth into existence or I believed the earth into existence. There is something outside of us, right?
Oh, see, I think you might be kind of confusing knowledge and truth. a little
It's
bit.
just so, right? The just so is just so that there's something instantiating this earth outside of us, right? And the question is what?
Yeah, there's epistemic issues and ontological issues.
It's like what is it? And you're like, well, we could just come up with a new religion. We could just come up with a new system of belief that puts that earth there, right? You know, like I can't imagine something into existence that makes that earth present. I'm reasoning from outside in, like truth is external, reaching towards us. It's not us.
We're not talking about truth, really.
It's not truth. It's not us.
Truth isn't the issue. It's
truth outside of us.
It's knowledge.
Truth is a relationship between the proposition and what it refers to.
Right.
And of course, a proposition is internal to us, but
Yeah.
what it refers to can be external to us. And truth is a relationship between the two.
Yeah, it seems like you might have a different issue, which is that there couldn't be truth if there isn't the Christian God. And that is a new one to me a little bit. I don't really understand. If that's what you've been talking about the whole time, that's a little different. We've been talking about knowledge, which is conceptually different than truth, because certainly there are things that are true that we don't know about. For example, whether or not the number of atoms in the universe is even or odd. That has an answer. It's one or the other, but I don't know it. And even if I guess it, I'm not justified in my guess.
It's a category error to say things like, this coffee cup is true, or Jesus is truth. Those are category errors. Whether truth values are assigned to propositions, not to objects. Now, if I say the earth exists, that's true. Now, if all minds disappeared, the proposition that the earth is true is still factual because the earth is still there, even though there are no minds to comprehend that idea, and that proposition would be in no minds. But ontologically, the earth still exists in reality. There's just no minds to observe or hold on to that proposition.
Right. True gets conflated with real a lot.
Well, okay, so let's take stock a little bit. So I want to know, I guess, if you're talking about knowledge or if you're talking about truth.
Truth.
Okay. So you're saying that truth couldn't exist without the Christian God. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Interesting. So let's say there's no God and all my beliefs are random. Okay? Everything is random. The whole universe. And the belief pops into my head that the number of atoms in the universe is even, and it turns out that in fact the number of atoms in the universe is even. Do I have a true belief?
Well, the thing is, like, can you like describe randomness? Like, does randomness exist in this universe? Have we ever perceived, experienced, or seen randomness?
No.
I
well,
don't believe that we
no.
have. And for
No,
you
we
to
have
say
no
belief is
justified
something-
perceptions. The
Yeah,
belief
so
just
a
randomly
belief,
pops into my head.
yeah, well, a belief,
Uncaused.
a belief requires cause and effect. A belief is coherent, right? It has causal links in there. And if you're saying everything is random,
Yeah,
there would
everything's
be,
random, including the belief. I
there
didn't
would
get
be
it the
no,
right way. It just the
there would be no
universe.
belief.
It just pop. Every billion years or so, physical objects congeal in the right way so that there are beliefs, and it just so happens that I'm
Impulse from brain.
randomly correct, right? Now it seems like
How
in
can
this
there
case,
be-
it's unlikely, statistically speaking, but it seems that my belief would be true. The question of how I got it is irrelevant because it's random.
So, yeah, I just,
Yeah, so
I
you have
don't
a
believe,
true belief, but it's not justified, so it's not considered knowledge. But
Right.
regardless, the belief is true.
yeah, well, I don't believe that we can have beliefs with randomness. I don't believe we can have a belief with randomness.
You don't
But
think it's
yeah,
logically possible?
Well, I don't like. It's hard to conceptualize what would randomness be because we've never seen it, we've never observed it, it does not exist in this current
Well,
universe.
that's all that matters is that it's logically conceivable.
So,
Let's just say he got the belief by turning to the magic 8-ball. He asked the magic 8-ball, "Is there an even number of atoms in the universe?" And the magic 8-ball revealed to him that yes, that is the case. So therefore, he believes that.
But yeah, so a belief necessitates order. But I just want to try to touch upon something like the importance of Christianity, right? The reason why it's really important, right, is that it provides like a foundation. It provides a foundation for free will, for logic, and for morality, right? It provides a foundation for meaning. That
what if
we're
it
not
doesn't?
just we're not just dominoes. We're not just
but see, this
biological
is
machine, right?
yeah,
That
but
doesn't
see,
matter
this
though.
is the point.
Basically, when I do something bad, I know that I've done it. I'm accountable for my actions, right? That
Yeah,
I've
but
sinned.
see, the
And
problem is,
I know that I've sinned, right? I've done bad
yeah,
things in my
but
life.
see, look,
And
look,
after sinning, right, I have blood on my hands. How do I wash the blood off of my hands, right?
yeah,
I
look,
can't do that, right? I
we
can't
can
do
grant
that.
you,
You can
Yes,
just use some
yes,
soap.
yes.
but look, we can grant
I can't do
you.
that
I'm
by
serious.
good deeds alone, right? I can't
Look,
do that by good deeds alone.
Just some
So that's
soap.
why God, who's perfectly just, and Jesus
If you
Christ,
are
who died
made
for
in
us,
Water,
the
stop
image
right,
preaching.
rise from the grave,
Presupposing Christian theology.
look,
to
look.
pay for our sins
Although
completely
they are
totally.
saying that
And this
isopropyl
grants us
alcohol.
meaning.
Wait, order
Right?
in the court.
Wait,
Yeah.
let's
Grants us
So
keep
meaning.
look,
talking
we
at
can.
once, please.
Apart,
Yeah.
Let Jack talk, please.
apart there
Yeah.
is no meaning, right?
Look,
So
we can grant
very
you.
very
We
important.
can. We
Water,
can grant
please.
you. We can grant you all of that for the sake of argument, right? But that isn't fulfilling the burden that you that we've placed before you, right? Which is to justify the claim epistemically, not merely pragmatically, right? So is there just a simple question that's been on the table going by Tom's calculations, for like at least 45 minutes now, I gather, right? Which is, what is the argument that establishes necessarily, deductively, a priori, right, that the only way there can be knowledge and intelligibility, and the non-question begging argument, I should add, that the only way there can be knowledge and intelligibility, right, is if the Christian God exists, right? Now, if you don't have an argument like that, that's fine. You could just say, you know what, I've got to go and study Van Til and Bonson and look for that argument, right? And I'll get back to you guys, right? That's fine, right? But every time we ask you for that and answer that question, we don't get that answer. We don't get you saying, you know what, I don't know what the argument is, right? And I'll have to go and, learn more about presuppositionalism to give you that argument. Nor do we get the argument. Nor do we get the argument that we're demanding, right? Which is the justification for the very, very, very strong claim you're making, which is not merely that Christianity offers a better explanation than all the others on offer, right? Which we could grant you for the sake of argument, but for the stronger claim that necessarily for those things to have an explanation and justification, the Christian God has to exist, right?
Well, essentially, yeah, you would need to accept my definition of truth. Once you accept my definition of truth, I mean, it's not just my definition. It is, it is what is true, right? It's just the definition of truth is that which comports with reality at a given moment. Truth is self-revelatory, not dependent on your mind or my mind, and it never changes.
All those things could be true without the existence of God, though.
How so?
Yeah.
Well, my case, right? That's a weird one, right? But it's easy to get. Look, if I have a belief and about the number of atoms in the universe and it happens to be true, then I have a true belief. Truth doesn't really. I mean, I'm trying to steer you towards the argument that I think you want to make, which is that justification, having a justified belief that's not random, that might be harder to get in an atheist universe.
But truth requires a foundation. It's not just like
truth just requires that the proposition is in the right relationship with the state of affairs. my belief about the number of atoms is true, just in case this is the number of atoms is, say, even.
No, but
That's it.
But let's say like my opinion was truth or my mind was truth. Well, then whatever I believe would occur in actuality. Like I could look at a dog and say the dog is ice cream, becomes ice cream. I could be like, there are unicorns in the sky, and there would be unicorns flying through the sky. I could do anything.
Those would be false beliefs. If the dog isn't ice cream, then that's a false belief.
Yeah, but what if it actually becomes ice cream in actuality? That would be truth.
Then it's true.
Dependent. Yeah, but that would be truth dependent on one's mind. So truth, that would be the foundation in that just so story, right?
No, reality doesn't depend on the mind.
It does.
The mind. What depends on the mind is the proposition, which corresponds to reality.
Proposition.
That's a belief.
Right. Again, propositions have truth values, not the ontology outside of your mind. Like I said, Jesus' truth is nonsensical. This coffee cup is truth is nonsensical.
Apples aren't true. Beliefs about apples are true.
Exactly.
But no, I would say that, yeah, like there's something actual about the apple, or something actual about the cup, right? It exists in actuality. There's something actual about it, right?
Seems
so
to
like,
be.
Let's say
sure.
Yeah, let's say you and I look at it, or let's say you look at a red apple. You perceive the color red because of light, bouncing off of it, and certain wavelengths are hitting your eyes. It's not that in actuality that's the apple has redness on it, right? It's just the light reflecting off of the skin, right? And the wavelengths that are being hit into your eye. But if it were possible that we could perceive what the apple is in actuality, we would be seeing like the true like how it is in actuality, like what. So
well, we don't need to know everything about the apple. I mean, you talk about a red apple. Well, our vision is limited to just what we call the visual spectrum, right? We don't see the ultraviolet, we don't see the X-rays, we don't see the infrared, and so forth. So color is dependent on the observer, and the photons hitting it, and other characteristics. But there is, we presuppose that there is a mind-independent reality, and then that apple exists independent of our minds, unless you're an idealist. Now, if you're an idealist, you turn your back to the apple. You would say that the apple doesn't exist when you turn your back to it. But I don't think either of us are idealists in that respect, unless you think you're idealist as far as God's mind, that all facts are generated within God's mind.
Oh. Yeah, I'm not like an idealist with regards to like turning my back on stuff and it ceased to exist, but
if God turned his back to it, in a sense, it would, right? Like, do you think that God maintains the existence of things through the active operation of his mind? Do you think that he upholds all of creation?
Yeah, isn't a belief in your theology that God not only created the earth, but he sustains the earth as well, the universe as well. He actually sustains it.
Yep.
If God didn't keep on sustaining it, I don't know, it would fall into randomness.
Well, it would cease to exist. It wouldn't exist.
So God is like a boy who has his finger stuck in the hole in the dam to keep the water from flowing out, right?
Right. So
if he pulls his finger out, the water starts squirting out of the dam, and the whole dam comes down.
Not like that. It's more like, I don't know, like someone who's carrying everything. Like.
Okay. Yeah. So it doesn't it doesn't really seem like your issue is how there could be truth. Maybe it's how could there be propositions? Like, without the Christian God, there can't be propositions. Truth seems like a weird one. When you start explaining truth to me, you start explaining how there has to be a certain way that the universe is set up, and it can only be set up that way if there's a God. That doesn't really seem to be what most people have in mind when they're thinking about truth. That seems to be something else. Truth is relatively simple to get, maybe in comparison with justification. All it needs to do, they imagine a universe that is totally random and thus over an unbounded amount of time, due to its randomness, will implement every single physical possibility. Every possible physical state will be implemented in this universe, including a belief that happens to be true randomly, even if only for a split second. So truth seems to be like kind of easy to get, even in like the craziest of circumstances. Would I?
I don't believe you can have a belief in a chance or a random universe. Like, how do you define a belief?
Well, it seems to be a proposition that I assent to. An assent is just going to be psychological, like maybe a disposition to act as if it were true.
So how do you define I?
Grant him that it can't be a chance universe, right? This is the whole problem, right? You can grant them everything, right? But we're still not going to get the argument that establishes that the Christian God is the only way, right? How long has it been now? An hour?
Yeah, I think I'm maybe just not really getting it. I don't know that I've heard of there being an issue with the existence of truth. Justification is what I'm used to hearing, but the truth thing isn't really landing with me.
Yeah,
Certainly,
but let's say it does. Let's say that there is a problem with truth, right? What is it about the Christian God that solves that problem that no other worldview could solve?
So truth has multiple properties. Self-revelatory. It's not dependent on your mind or my mind, and never changes. No other entity can substantiate that, right? Not Islam, not Hinduism, not agnosticism, like nothing else substantiates that. So yeah, Christianity is true.
How is it substantiated?
It's actual, right? Because if it wasn't actual, we couldn't speak right now. And so when he was talking about beliefs, right, he says, well, I can get a belief randomly. Well, so first we have to define what a belief is. Does it require cause and effect? Does it require mind? Does it require consciousness? Then we need to define what is I, right?
We can grant you all of that for the sake of argument, right?
Where is this going?
What we're asking you to do is give us the argument in question, which is the argument that establishes that the only way you can have all of these things, right, which we're granting you for the sake of argument are required, that the only way you can have that is through the Christian God.
Well, I've never heard of any other alternatives.
But didn't you understand from the beginning when we asked you this question was that it's not enough to say I don't know of an alternative to justify the stronger claim? Because your claim is not that I don't know of another alternative, right? Your claim is it's the only way. Right?
Yeah, you went from a transcendental argument to an argument from ignorance. The transcendental argument is much stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So we're asking for the actual transcendental argument.
right. It seems like maybe, if anything, it's just you're just pointing out that there's a lack of an account, which I'm fine with. If there's a lack of an account of how these things can come to be, what would be interesting is if there was a proof that we're just systematically mistaken about what's possible. And what you're saying is, I do have that proof. This is systematically impossible. And we say, oh, holy cow, well, we're all ready to be theists. Let's hear what that reason is. And you say, well, how is it possible in a universe without God? And then we're kind of deflated because it's like, well, I don't know. Who knows? We're working on it.
Yeah, I mean, why don't you just Google the answer, right? Like presuppositionalists have been saying this for like decades now, right? That there's some necessity, right? Some necessity for the very possibility of intelligibility and knowledge that the Christian God exists, right? So presumably they have some non-question begging argument that establishes it. You're conceding you don't know what it is. You have a lot of confidence, nonetheless, that it's true, even though you don't know the argument, right? So probably you just think, your friends who taught you presuppositionalism, right, are just very reliable and smart people, and so they must know the argument. So I assume it's not a well-kept secret. Just Google it.
I mean, I read a lot of Van Til, Bonson, and Gordon Clark, and I'm still waiting for the justification for their take.
No, there's no way they don't have the argument. There's just no way.
There must have been one book I missed to read.
You just haven't read the right book.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I just believe that, the impossibility of the contrary, right?
Yeah, that's what we're asking you to justify. Not.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the claim that the contrary is impossible, but impossibility is a very high bar. Everything's possible unless, unless it's not. As in, everything is possible unless you have like everything is possible unless you have a pretty good like argument to say like, no, in fact, this lies outside the realm of logically possible. And again, if we take two propositions, here's a straightforward contradiction, right? At time t1, it is raining at my house, where my is understood to be JHC. And at t2, it is not raining at my house. Well, it seems hard to understand. That seems to be impossible. That's contradictory. You can't have at the same time, same place, same meaning of all those words, it both be raining and not raining. So that's okay. We would accept that as a proof. Well, you can't do that because for it to be raining at a place just is for it to not be the case that it is not raining. That's just the meaning of the words. But if I say something like, I know at least one thing and God does not exist, I need to bridge the gap somehow. I need those, it doesn't even have the same terms, right? So we're missing something. We need some glue. And that's where arguments come in to fill the glue. It's going to start with, say, God or knowledge in one proposition and something about, what's something
Not
about
just God.
The Christian God. That's right.
That's right.
But I'd be willing, even just for the sake of argument, to say like theism. I know you want something stronger, but whatever, right?
No, but that's what
Yeah.
I think is so
But,
absurd
yeah,
about the
I think,
presuppositionalist position, because what's so interesting about it is that they really have to. You can understand there being like a good a priori argument for the existence of a God, right? And certainly those arguments have been offered, right, throughout the ages, right? But what they want to say is that every word of the Bible is an a priori truth, right?
Right.
And that just seems like a crazy, crazy thing to say, right? That if one word of the Bible were different from what it is, that would entail a contradiction.
So,
right?
Yeah, it's like saying not only is cola the best soda, but Pepsi Cola is the best soda.
Yeah. So I think like for me personally, one of the strongest evidence is for God's existence, and the thing for me is just morality, right? That morality is a claim with authority. You
Yeah,
ought
but
not
see, the problem is
you ought to be kind to orphans, right?
Problem is,
and when I did evil things, right? My identity was originally grounded in my goodness. Oh, I'm a good person. I'm better than Hitler. I'm better than Mao. I'm better than Stalin. I'm better than the murderer down the street, right? I'm not as bad as those guys. I'm a pretty good person, right? I'm gonna, maybe work hard and hopefully get to heaven, right? I'll be a pretty good guy.
Well,
So that was my original beliefs. But when I did evil things, right, I shattered my identity. I was like, oh, well, I'm not a good person. I did evil things, and we all, like, God has written his law in our hearts, right? We know what is good, we know right and wrong, good and evil, and yeah, so
look,
essentially,
So you have a psychological
just a
problem?
minute, just a minute.
so
I
essentially,
can
this
accept.
it's
Look,
just we need to repent and accept that Jesus paid
look,
our debt in full,
look,
right?
look,
So
look,
that's
look,
what
look,
it is.
look,
And
look.
I'm
I
pretty
don't.
much I'm done with talking, so I'm just gonna like say, thanks for debating, and I appreciate you guys all, and I just hope that I'll pray for you guys for sure. But I hope
Thanks,
that
Water.
the best for you guys, and hope that you repent and find Jesus.
Would you be willing to come back and have a discussion sometime?
Are you a Calvinist, by the way?
I think he's
Water.
done.
He's
I
lit
think
up,
he's
but I
done.
don't hear anything.
Water, come back tonight.
Most presuppositions are Calvinists, but I just want to confirm that he is.
EF
Is
is
Darth Dawkins a Calvinist?
He's not.
no. EF believes in libertarian free will, a decidedly not very Calvinist doctrine.
Water is a Calvinist.
I think there are Muslim presuppositionalists, though,
I've never
Is
seen
there,
one.
Water?
I need you to find me one.
and
Yeah,
there's also Jay Dyer. There's Jay Dyer. He's a presupposition.
But he's
yeah,
Eastern
he's a creed of
Orthodox.
his own.
That's what I'm saying. He's a non-Calvinist presupposition.
Yeah. I think I don't really know many Calvinist presuppositionalists.
I'd like to know. He brought up that you can't have truth with Islam either. Usually when you bring up Islam, we'll turn to the problem with one and the many, like I mentioned before, Jack. When you bring up Islam, so they're basically saying that Christianity solves more philosophical issues than any other worldview. That's what they're saying.
Right. So Thomas knows this guy.
Yeah, a little bit.
Thomas. Yes. I mean, it's got to be either that he didn't understand the issues or he was being dishonest.
I think he understands. Oh, I'm not going to speak for him. It's not my place.
But you admit it has to be one or the other, right?
Sure.
Because what he said,
I think he's a nice guy. I like him.
Well, he is nice. But what he said at the end was, here's my evidence for belief in God, right? When the whole point of presuppositionalism is that it doesn't rely on evidence, right? So I personally, I don't think those things count as evidence, but I could grant him all of that, right? That's not actually supporting the strong, that's not giving the justification for the stronger claim, which doesn't rely on any evidence. But he didn't. At no point did he say. At no point did he say, you know what? I don't have the argument. Right.
Sure.
So I find the "I'll pray for you" thing. I mean, the "I'll pray for you" thing is like, maybe that's a sweet gesture, of brotherly love, right? But it's a little bit annoying because he's just not. He's either not understanding that what he said was not what we were looking for, or he's just being dishonest, right? Which is not acknowledging he doesn't have the argument that he professed to have.
And my biggest issue was that he's calling the assumptions of other worldviews as arbitrary. That seems to be an external critique and not an internal critique. So we're actually going to really compare one worldview versus another worldview, or is he just going to ask a person who holds another worldview to justify his foundational beliefs, which is an external critique.
So what's the deal with the problem of the one and the many? Is that like a legitimate philosophical issue?
No.
Because no, yeah, okay.
Ask
It never seemed intelligent to me. That's why I'm asking.
Ask JHC.
I don't know. Well, so the problem is
universal
that
particular thing, right?
well, I mean, Jack, were you there for that conversation?
With Matt Yester?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't quite understand why why you do this to yourself.
It was fun, Jack. Come on.
No, I knew it was gonna happen, right? And I'm fine with that. So the problem is that I just swallowed Platonism about abstract objects. And then he said, so you believe that you existed before
Yeah, that was good.
in the Platonic realm, as if that's what anybody means by Platonism in the year 2020. And that if I didn't accept that, then I was an Aristotelian or I was a Neoplatonist because I believe in Platonic objects, which is
Yeah, I heard that part.
That's not, but here's what I find worrying, Jack, is that Matt Yester seems to be reading up on like the history of philosophy. I'm guessing through like I don't know, probably like Van Til or Bonson or somebody like that, right? Going through like a concentrated history of philosophy. So he knows these names, but the positions are weird. And
he doesn't
it's just the terminology just is like 10% off at best.
You know what I think about that guy that you just
10%.
You know what I think about that guy the guy you were just talking to? He's a young kid. I think he did something he feels ashamed about. And he did something.
I don't know why we're talking about that right now. That to me seems like bullshit. We don't need to talk
And
about
he was a
whatever,
very nice boy.
Whatever you're
and
talking
the reason
that's
and
just
the
bullshit.
reason and so this is why people adopt these things.
I mean, you
either
could just
a
claim
young
that,
woman.
Brenda, but like you have
It's
no
either
reason
a young.
to believe that.
Excuse me.
Can Brenda finish,
Excuse
please?
me.
I just think that's
Excuse me.
bullshit for her to
Excuse me.
Thomas, please hold on.
It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. If we talk to him, you can meet him there. He did something he feels bad about, right? He has a guilty conscience, and this is his way of assuaging that conscience. It's either that or it's a girl.
I mean, could be a range of
Brenda,
things, right?
I don't want to be mean, but it kind of sounds like you're doing the what happened, like theist to atheist. It's kind of weird.
I have a theory that the reason that people convert is typically either a young woman or it's recovery from substance abuse of some kind. That's what it is. It isn't rational. I don't think rational arguments is going to convert people one way or the other. People do it for life experiences. I think that young Catholic girls have converted more men to Catholicism than any apologist.
That's true.
Including me.
I
Including
think
me.
it's true to say that can happen, but I don't think that's the only reason why it happened.
JHC. So like Tyler Vela, Vincent, Jimmy Stevens, Matt Yester, Matt Slick, and most of the presup I know are all Calvinists, aside from like Jay Dyer and Jonathan. But like I don't even know if I'd really consider Jonathan.
Darth Dawkins.
Oh yeah. So Dyer and Dawkins. But so besides them, I don't think I know of any non-Calvinist presups. Because I mean, Calvinists will say it's most consistent with Scripture or whatever.
I think there are Muslims who've adopted presuppositionalist apologetics.
Have you met one yet?
The Christians took the Kalam and the Muslims responded.
Wait, have you met one yet?
I think so.
It's not like a troll like Leet, obviously.
No.
Jack, you're forgetting pantheist precept.
Shut up, JJ.
No.
Can we get a mute on JJ?
Wow, I don't know why you would just exclude it.
That's the reason why we need a mute on JJ. JJ talking is the reason why we need a mute on JJ.
More hand waving. Okay.
Arguably, we can only understand JJ with the Christian God. But you said you've met a Christian presuppositionalist?
A Muslim?
I'm sorry, Muslim presuppositionalist.
I think so. I think I've encountered it before. I'm having difficulty, maybe on Pal Talk. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I recall there was a debate between a Christian presuppositionalist and a Muslim presuppositionalist.